Franchising is here. LCS is back, and there is a meme team that's been formed. And not only are we going to talk about it, we also have the guy who's helping to run it. League Weekly starts now. Well, everyone, we are back for another week of League Weekly. I'm very excited to be here. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
I am excited the LCS is back. I feel like I'm still like pro players a little bit, where without the LCS, you're not yourself. You know, like a large part of your life is missing.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Mark Zimmerman is a man of many talents. He's on a variety of different shows, including the LCS every weekend. Newly announced analyst for a very serious Ica Fox team, and so much more. Also want to introduce my colleague here, Emily. How's it going, Emily?
Well, how are you?
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Saw Wonder Woman last night. It was fantastic.
Nice.
Yeah. Have you seen it yet?
I have not.
You should. Gal Gadot is, I hope to marry her one day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll come away with the same reaction.
Really?
Maybe
I mean,
I'll go see
she's
it.
very...
That's very close-minded of you.
I'm actually really bad about seeing movies.
Okay. Well, go see this one, please. Yeah,
Okay.
anything else?
No
Anything else to
commitment
throw
out of
at the
that
start
one.
this?
No,
I'm so bad. I never
Yeah.
see movies in the theater.
Yeah.
I occasionally rent them or watch them on Netflix.
All right, great. Well, hopefully we've got more excitement coming from China. How's it going, Kelsey?
Not bad. I noticed how you asked her, you told her that she has to see Wonder Woman, but you haven't told her that she has to see other movies, Travis.
Well,
why is that?
What other movies would there be? I don't understand.
Never mind.
I'm missing this.
Okay, so I'm in China, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only going to be in China for a little bit though, so
Yeah. How much?
and I'll be in other locations.
When do you leave?
I guess the 20th ish.
Yeah.
So
It's hard for
I have a
us.
couple more to-
It's hard for us right now because the monitors in the studio that we normally look at are not adjusting to whatever the feed is.
We're not getting programmed.
We
We're
can
getting just
we can
signals.
only hear you right now.
Yes.
Unless I turn.
Yeah, okay.
and
Well,
stare.
I'll look at you here. Hopefully, the control room can help us out there soon. But I think it's leading to the show's just falling apart at the seams. You know,
I'm
you change-
fine.
You
I
change.
don't know how you
It's
feel.
already over.
I don't even notice anything different,
Mark
actually. I
never
just
wants
stare
to
at
see me
myself
anyway.
anyways.
So
You
it's
change
good.
one thing about the show and it just falls apart. All right, let's go ahead and get into the show now that we've gone ahead and introduced everything. One of the things that I really want everyone to talk about this week, we're going to start off with Mark Zimmerman's betrayal. All right. I think I actually have a sound effect for that. Okay. So, Mark, you didn't know that this was going to be a topic, but let's discuss your personal betrayal of me and my colleagues here. So, starting off on a personal note, I had a birthday party a week ago.
Oh, what the? Oh my
And-
god! I thought this was gonna be about the Echo Fox thing.
And,
maybe.
well, hang on. We're going to get to that. Okay. And you did not make it to the birthday party.
It was a week after your birthday party that you already had in Brazil.
No, I didn't have a birthday party in Brazil.
You
That was
did.
a sad
You said
thing.
it sucked.
No. I had nothing happened
Oh,
in Brazil. It was
ouch.
very sad. You know?
Yeah, there you go.
I went out to dinner with Emily. That was the party.
You said.
Hey, we don't.
You said you went with a
there are
bunch of
other
people.
people.
All right,
Yeah.
Emily, we're talking about Mark right now.
I switched it.
Okay. Next up, Mark renames one of the other shows he's on to the greatest league talk show ever while doing this show with us.
Skara also has
Maybe
another
if
show.
Our show didn't have such a weird name, like League Weekly, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not even weekly. We take breaks
Skara has
sometimes.
another show as well, so it's obviously a joke. You saw the announcement video, right?
No.
We literally just
I don't
made
watch
fun of
anything
every
attached
show
to
that
the show.
ever existed that
Okay.
in the league scene. We made fun of your old show, State of the League. We made fun of my previously with Yahoo, Late Night League. We made
yeah.
fun of everything.
Okay. Well, anyway, calling
so
your other show the
there's,
greatest
There's
league.
two betrayals. Is
No,
there a third?
yeah. The third betrayal. I don't even know how to, but it feels like a betrayal. This weird, you're going to be an analyst for this weird meme team. It's very confusing.
So are we moving on to that finally?
No, we're going to talk about it later, but I just want to throw it out there. I feel like myself, Emily, and Kelsey have all felt terribly betrayed by you.
That's too bad. I feel like I did nothing wrong. I feel like it should be my right to be like, oh, I just worked all day. I'm going to decline going to this birthday party.
All right. Well,
That is a week after your birthday, after you celebrated it.
yeah,
already.
and that's why because I wanted to do something because I was, all alone and
I'm
without
sorry.
a single friend, you know?
I was gonna go
Just all by myself.
I was gonna go, and then after casting a day of collegiate, I was kind of tired.
It's collegiate.
Yeah, I had to do all of it. I had to carry that.
All right. Let's move on to the franchise announcement, and if it was a good thing. So, for those of you that do not know, and you hopefully will because it's a huge announcement, though I don't know how much the community has really paid attention to this. Last week, I believe it was last week, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Last week, Riot announced, because we took a week off, so that's what kind of confused me. Riot announced permanent partnerships because they can't use the word franchising. And basically, and as well as a couple of other things, including Players Association, we'll talk about in a second, and changes the way Challenger works. But basically what they are doing now is beginning, and I don't think they've said this word publicly, but it's what everybody else is using the term, the RFP, request for proposal. So right now they are soliciting bids and applications from different organizations, including existing LCS teams and upcoming other, anybody else who wants to join in, right? Like if Mark Cuban wants to submit an application to get in, he could do that. If former President Barack Obama wanted to do that, he could as well. And he probably needs something to keep him busy in the off time. So,
Never mind.
What?
I was gonna make an awful joke.
Okay, don't do that. It would be betrayal number 4, I'm sure. So the question I have for you guys is we'll dive into things about, how safe the current teams are and the Players Association specifically, but I'm curious what everyone's kind of gut reaction is to the franchise announcement that came out last week, and if this is a good thing.
Gut reaction is great.
Yeah?
I'm happy about it.
Okay. How come?
I mean, do you want to launch into all of it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I didn't know if we wanted to get everyone's gut reaction first.
No, I mean, like everybody can kind of openly discuss this.
Yeah, I think overall it's a good thing. I do think there are a lot of concerns about it that are fair, but a lot of the ones raised by the community miss the point. So, like, if you're concerned about bottom feeding teams, which is like the #1 viewer concern, I think that doesn't make any sense. I think being concerned about the loss of wanting to follow a bottom team because they no longer have to face relegations and maybe you just tune out number 8, 9, and 10 in the league because they're boring. That's a potential concern, but a lot of the times there's other storylines that take over because now you can swap between players and try and develop things.
I feel like people already kind of do that with some of the bottom
they already
teams
do
anyway, so it's not like I actually hadn't heard that concern, but I don't see how franchising plays into that, I guess.
Yeah, so that was one of them, and it's like, well, great. A team can now like take their academy team players and put them in the main stage and give them some more experience. Like there's other storylines, like not the ones you're used to, but there should be ones that fill it in. So I thought a lot of the community concerns were weird and kind of off base, but like, is this actually good for the league? Is this going to be able to support, like, are there enough teams to want to do this? How's the challenger scene going to look now that it's expanding to 10 teams? There's a lot of other questions because even in the challenger scene right now, people are importing players there and it's still not even that full of talent necessarily. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of other logistical concerns along with like what teams are going to make it in and those kinds of things. What's that process going to be like? So. Yeah. Overall, though, I think it is good for the competitive landscape because I always said, like, if the bottom-feeding teams in the league are actually profitable, that means the league is doing phenomenally. Right. And you want that problem where, like, a team can actually make money doing nothing in your league because it's so successful. Like, sign me up for that league.
Kelsey, thoughts?
I mean, I definitely have concerns. So based on the announcement, I can't really decide if it's good or bad because I feel like we still don't have details. And I think we need
There's a lot of details. What details are you missing? Did you watch my video?
It was really vague. Like when you talk about how you're going to set up the revenue sharing model and things like that, I felt like that was extremely vague.
Really? I thought that was very clear because they're splitting it 3 ways.
Like, they're splitting it 3 ways, yeah, but the question isn't necessarily like where the money is outputting to, it's like where the money specifically is coming from, which was more vague.
Well, so the money is coming from the media broadcast rights as well as but then the teams also pay in with their sponsorships and their situation. I think really quickly what I would say is that the sense I get from the way they were talking about this is that they are Riot and the owners, I think.
One thing that I read that seemed to imply that I think is like probably really good is that they'll be unlocking more like in-game stuff for teams, which I think is good, and that's a good start. It just feels like then you have the merchandising deals, which still aren't clear, and those have kind of kicked off in the LPL a little bit. So we can look at that as a model to see what kind of things that might look like. But it was something that was proposed to the LCS before, is my understanding, were these merchandising deals, and the teams didn't really like them because the split of revenue wasn't good. So I don't know exactly what is going to happen with that either. So just a lot of questions.
Just to touch on the previous attempts at like kind of rev sharing merchandising, I know a large problem previously was some big teams who have the largest pool of fans were concerned that why would I give up my stake of the money for basically nothing in return? Because if, let's say, hypothetically, you're TSM and you sell 90% of the player jerseys that get sold in the store, why are you giving some revenue of that to, at the time, like a Velocity who sells 0% of the thing? So there was like massive concerns about that, and there was nothing in place in their agreement with Riot that mandated they had to do that. So I think a lot of the big teams were kind of like, no, I don't want to give up my merchandising money for nothing in return. Yeah.
So is the thing that they're receiving in return now just the permanent partnership?
Yeah, I think it'll probably be written into the contract.
So I was like, that's not necessarily changed.
Yeah,
like,
the concern.
You're still going to have to get over yourself and give money. Like, because this is something that happens with traditional sports teams all the time, where I've never seen like a lot of teams themselves or team representatives themselves say this, but fans all the time are like, why the beep do we have to give money to this team because they're terrible and like we're so much better anyway?
And that's a problem you'll have to face in franchising, but at the very least contractually it can now be made that like if you want to take place in the league, too bad.
Okay, so back to what go ahead, Kelsey.
I mean, but they have it so Chinese teams can opt out. So and both IG and EDG opted out.
Well, there you go, the big team. I don't think you can allow that. That's
okay. So, but
I mean, one of the biggest teams, and I was really surprised, like OMG and WE opted in because they all have existing successful stores. And my thing with EDG was, if I'm EDG, like, why am I going to opt into this deal when I already have this really huge online store, and then suddenly I'm not allowed to sell what's probably my most successful product, which is my jersey. So. That was kind of my thing with the LPL franchise merchandising deal. And the other thing with the merchandising deal with LPL is that Riot wanted to design all of the uniforms themselves, right? And then they all look really similar. Like, it's kind of weird. And then one of the reasons that EDG gave, and I think this is probably a throwaway reason, and they just didn't want to opt into the deal, is that they didn't like the heart-shaped neckline on the jersey, that they all have they wanted the circle neck, so they wanted to keep their own jersey. And then IG's reason was like, we wanted to keep our slogan, which is that it's all about believing.
On the back, yeah.
Okay,
so wait,
hang on. Well, we're going off
tangentially related.
Well, hang on. We've gone super tangential.
The point is that the merchandising stuff, like, I still don't understand how NA is going to do that. Like, there are a whole bunch of questions that you still have to ask.
Sure, but I do think that we have a pretty, like, we both know and don't know where the money is going to come from, because the money is going to come from all these different categories that they've outlined. And from talking to Riot and the owners, the sense I get, the guess that I have is that no one really knows where the majority of this money is going to come from into the league, because the question is, can you sell the league?
That is,
if you can sell the league, then you're good. What if you can't sell the league? Then you can sell these teams. And so whenever you have every single different part of, whether it's merchandise, whether it's team sponsorships, whether it's league broadcast rights, whether it's like league sponsorship, or whether it's in-game merchandise, all this stuff going into a pool and then being split out, you are basically securing everybody's interests.
That's actually my huge problem with this, though. And when I was thinking about how vague everything sounds, it's not like the outline they gave was vague, but I don't see how, like, for example, the media broadcast rates, right? That's something that's really easy to see in traditional sports setup, obviously, because they do television first. But when they announced the partnership with BAMTech, they specifically said, no, we're not going to change the way LCS is streamed. We're going to keep, because a lot of people were speculating maybe they'll do like a pay in to get the high quality stream. Like, I know I was a avid OGN subscriber and I totally didn't mind paying them the whatever, like $6 a month or something like that. Like, it was not that much. But I totally didn't mind that to get the quality stream. But I know a lot of people are used to getting this for free. And Riot has always come out and said, no, it's always still going to be available for everyone to access for free. So I guess to me, in terms of how big they want this to be, I'm not sure if the numbers add up in my head. And it seems like another... The reason why it concerns me is because something you see a lot of in esports is people being like, there's money in esports, there's money in esports, we can monetize this. But I don't see like a specific thing that says we will be able to monetize this or we will have money coming in from broadcast rights, because it's fine that they list the broadcast rights. Like the actual outline is very like, bam, 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 these are the things we're going to do. But I don't see where the money is going to come from broadcast rights.
Well, okay, broadcast rights. Well, they've already said how much money is coming. Like we already know the BAMTech number
was 50 million
on
starting,
average
right?
a year.
Yeah.
And so if you're asking how BAMTech makes that money and or maybe makes even more than that, because it's the minimum, right? So then they've talked about how Riot and BAMTech, in my interview with them last year, was saying that they were interested in exploring like a premium product. So while HD still might be available, what if you want to get access to a system that allows you to see multiple streams at once, or it unlocks the ability to see player cams, or it goes into something where you get like additional stats and data whenever you're watching, or a better experience. Like there's a way for them to still allow HD video while creating a premium product that is maybe $5 a month. So I expect them to do something along those lines.
I guess that's the thing, because I don't like necessarily disagree with your reasoning, but I'm just saying, since I can't necessarily see where that money is coming from, it seems a bit shaky to me. I mean, like, I know you and I've spoken about Overwatch League and similar concerns with that, where like it's a little bit different there, because they're kind of, it seems like they're counting on this viewer base or money coming in from somewhere.
That's the biggest difference.
But I guess I'm still slightly concerned with this and revenue sharing. I also don't think that, and I'm totally willing to like hear other people chime in on this, particularly like Mark, you might know something more about this, but like we've seen kind of a slight decline in individual sponsorships in favor of like more like general like team-based sponsor, like headlining sponsors, I guess, or revenue partners like Dignitas, for example. But there aren't as many like individual, even like sponsors that would appear on jerseys.
You mean like when you say individual sponsors, you mean like from a single company, not sponsoring a player individually?
Yeah.
Because I was going to say individual sponsorships of people has gone up. Like people.
Yeah, that's completely different.
Yeah.
I see that more as like a streaming thing. Yeah.
I don't know the details quite as much as I did back when I was on teams, but from my understanding, a lot of companies that did sponsor teams, aside from like the biggest couple teams, which still have some, has been like hard to nail down for people.
Yeah, no, I mean Noah specifically said that there was a sponsorship collapse in the North American market.
Yeah, I remember that interview,
or in the last year or so. So, okay, but here let me continue to, because I am very confident that like this might be besides Rocket League like the one esport that truly makes like a good profit for everyone involved. Because look. Okay, BAMTech they'll have a premium product. We don't know the details there, but they'll make some money from that almost undoubtedly, right? Like there are so many people that watch that you can throw something out there for $5 and somebody will buy it.
I mean, I think that's kind of difficult to say though. Maybe I'm just being like super pessimistic, but like because everything's available for free. Like people are used to getting things for free.
Yes, but they can put premium stuff behind like. Yeah, they can always add stuff.
But that's like the hardcore fan viewing.
Yeah, that's like a limited edition Blu-ray release or something like that.
Right, but people still put limited edition Blu-ray releases out because they make money. Like it's
not enough money to revenue share for an entire
The one thing
league.
that I think people like might actually be really interested in would be like individual player streams. But then again, that's still a hardcore fan base, but that's like I can't. I'm trying to think of something that people will pay.
What if you get special?
Like,
every analyst will pay for that.
Yeah,
you will
jungle.
Get at least,
give me a jungle stream. I will pay. I will pay a lot of money.
You'll get like about 100 of those per month at least, just from the teams who are also rev sharing back to themselves. So I'm paying myself.
But yeah, again, so like, will the teams as a result of that go in and then sorry, I bring up LPL for everything because they've done like literally all this.
I mean, okay,
but,
you guys are sorry, Kelsey.
Individual player streams were shut down because the people who owned streaming contracts with the players didn't want you to have another source where you could see individual players. Like things like this are I don't know. I know it's not China.
I think
but
a couple of these.
Is, like,
I think these are pretty pertinent, though, as released in North America.
Where are these issues coming from? And, like, again, I hear, but it's not China, Kelsey. Well, it's like if we're not.
That's not what I said.
Sounded like you.
What is the point of China?
Sounded exactly like.
Okay, look, listen, folks, come on. All right. So you guys are telling me that you don't think that you can get people to pay for a premium experience or something that doesn't have like a ton of value when we live in a world of Twitch subscription.
That is not actually not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't think you can make enough money
to support a 10-team league with
a $10 million per team.
I agree.
With academy teams.
A single BAMTech subscription for like service is not going to monetize the league, but you have here are all these sources of revenue. You've got a premium service, which I agree won't do it on its own. You've got the broadcast rights on their own, which will be used to fulfill like pre-roll and all that stuff for people that aren't running ad block. And I would be surprised if over the years BAMTech doesn't create some sort of anti-ad block technology, which is getting more and more popular across the internet. So now you've got millions of viewers that you can run ads against. You can sell the league to things like the Acer sponsorship, which certainly was worth at least a couple million, if not more. And then you've got merchandise revenue. Then you've got digital in-game stuff. Then you've got the teams paying in based off of their own sponsorships. Like now we have 6 different sources of revenue, and that's just the stuff that we can think of right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they add more. So it's crazy to me to think that with all of these different sources, and if you start to get more aggressive with monetizing this stuff, you can't get more. Like we've talked about this with Overwatch League. You think that, okay, if Riot started saying, hey, for every minute of LCS that you watch, you get 1 IP, like their viewership is going to go up. It's going to get really cheesy, right? But like there are certainly tons of levers that they can pull on. I don't think up to
pull
this
them all,
point,
baby.
I don't think up until this point they have really cared about monetizing and making a profit off of LCS. I think that is changing this year, and certainly they will have to make sure that all these owners are going to be happy. And I think that they have all these as options.
So all I'll say is like, if everything goes right, I think that's the thing. Is like you should be able to generate enough revenue to make this profitable and work out. It's just like, is it going to? Because it is still new for a lot of them. Like I wouldn't say, like, no offense to the people who run LoL Esports, but they haven't been great about it. From what I heard about like the Coke sponsorship and all these other things, they don't have like a great precedence in terms of capitalizing on potential like revenue streams. Yes. And like even to the degree of they didn't have championship skins that you could buy, like ward skins and champion skins for people to contribute to prize pool until finally last year, which was sparked off outrage.
Because I don't think they cared until now.
They didn't care, exactly.
And now they will have to.
Right, and I understand the difference, but it is like, it's not like you're like, oh my God, these guys have been crushing it, and this is just the next step forward. It has actually, like, it's slowed down between Season 4 and Season 7 now of, like, the growth of League in terms of, I mean, the product has always been improving, I think. Like, the broadcast has always been getting better, but it did feel like the economic backbone was, like, kind of, like, ignored for a while.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's true.
And in NA, we still have things like player salaries are increasing while all these other stuff are decreasing, which is, like, we still haven't caught up to some of these things, and it's slowing down in other areas, the amount of money that people are willing to pay for players and things like this. So I'm just kind of nervous about it until I see exactly where the money is coming from and like more details on the plan that is going to be laid out, because they haven't really provided that yet.
Yeah. All right. While still on the topic of franchising, before we get into the next, which is how safe are everybody, but I'm kind of curious, does anybody else have any other thoughts on this topic before we get into the specific teams themselves?
I think when you have all like the fiscal concerns and like all those kind of questions, which we mostly covered. When I said great previously, I was talking about in terms of like league structure and like that kind of stuff, which I was saying great for. And that's I don't know how other people feel about like in terms of how good is it for making it an interesting league and those kinds of things.
I actually don't think so. Obviously, a lot of people are really. You brought up the concerns about like, oh, this team will just feed and be bad. I actually think that will happen less than people think, or at least not any more or less than what's going on right now. Like, I actually don't think that'll change. I think the thing that was really interesting to me, because I don't know if anyone watched it, but like Kelsey and I did a whole video on this when it was announced. Initially for China for this current split. And one of the things that I brought up just coming from a traditional sports structure was the fact that a lot of times a league is a collection of owners that arbitrates with the players, and that's actually how they communicate with league rules and contracts and stuff like that. And I was really interested to see that Riot is creating the Players Association, which on the one hand, there's the whole like Riot is creating the Players Association itself, which is kind of weird because usually, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but like usually it's the players come up and like are arguing on their own interests, which Mark is already hysterically laughing. And I know that this is a coming topic in the discussion. Yes. So we'll talk about that later. But I did just want to say that was one of the things I was really wondering about. So I'm glad that they at least addressed it, and I'll say more of what I want to say when we discuss it. But that was actually the thing that stood out to me the most, because even though the broadcast revenue thing really concerns me, I was actually really surprised to see that they announced the creation of a Players Association at all.
Yeah, I think that it was good to see Riot address, and I feel like it fell on deaf ears, the concerns people had about teams not caring or just sitting in the LCS, because there are financial incentives to perform better. Like you actually get a bigger cut compared to some of your other teams. Like if TSM does better than Immortals, like they were saying.
Well, they said like what percent of rev?
They didn't clarify how much percentage, but
I thought they did. I thought they said specifically somewhere how much of the rev share would be included into like performance-based incentives.
Oh, I thought they did. They maybe said
maybe I was reading a hypothetical thing,
but yes, if you are the first place team, you're going to make more money than the bottom place teams, and also you can still get ejected if your team is placing poorly for several splits in a row.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, well, it's like 4 years or something. And it's like, well, good. I don't want to like kick out a good partner because like you just thought you had a good roster and you didn't. Or that was the best you could get because no one wanted to sign with you that split or something.
I don't think relegation and losing all these brands, like there's a reason why TSM, Cloud9, CLG, and TL are like the only brands people care about. And it's because you start to get a team like LMQ. And it's like, oh, they've got kind of these goofy dudes on their thing. And they went to Worlds. And then, oh, now they're TIP. Oh, now they're gone because they're a crappy owner. And now we get a new brand. It's like you've got this terrible churn on team brands and players and identities, and nobody ends up becoming a fan of these other teams. And then that's how you end up with, what was it, Envy versus Echo Fox? Who was it the second day? Who did Envy play yesterday? I'm trying to remember.
Who did Envy play?
Yeah.
It was a 3-1
yesterday.
And then they played Ari in the last game, and they won.
I
remember the games. Like, I remember the plays. I just don't remember who was against.
Yeah, okay. Well, the Twitch chat will help us in a second. But they had like 5,000 people watching their stream versus like the 150 or 160,000 people watching the IMT and TSM game. Phoenix won. Thank you. So, I mean, we couldn't even remember the name of this team. Like, that's how good the brand is. And so, I think that is unhealthy when you have so much concentration. You know, there's only 10 teams, and 2 of them are pulling 5K. Another one is pulling. Do I think that there should be a huge lead? Yes, but I don't know if it's that much. So, anyway, my whole point is I think this is going to be a lot better.
Yeah,
I think
it's a lot easier to be a fan of a team that's existed since the beginning than one that showed up a year ago.
Yeah. All right, so the next question is, how safe are the current teams for franchise? This is kind of fun.
This is mostly speculation.
Yeah, it's all speculation. We don't have any details, but we are experts, and we get paid for a reason. So now we're going to give you our expert speculation.
All right. So they did list what their basis of evaluating teams would be on. They you need to have a plan. You need to come forward with what you're going to bring with sponsors, how you're going to acquire sponsors, how that's all going to work. What's your plan for how your team's going to run? They did have listed all out somewhere like what they expect in their proposals. Now that said, you don't know how much they're valuing each bullet point in that proposal. Like, how important is your sponsorship plan versus how much money do you have right now? Like, are you a big name? Like Mark Cuban, your document wasn't that compelling, but shit, you're Mark Cuban. Like,
right.
Let's grab him. So I think that's kind of where a lot of the ambiguity comes from right now. And in terms of who's safe right now, I think you can only say kind of for sure, like the super big dogs who have
which would be,
I would say, like, you can probably write in TSM. And when I say big dogs, I don't necessarily mean like existing in esports for a while, but people who already have like big backing, like Dignitas, regardless of like.
You think Dignitas regardless?
No, I was gonna say regardless of like what you think about them as an org, they have 76ers behind them, which is like pretty big.
All right, we'll talk about Dig in a second.
Yeah, but that was just an example of like a team with a big ownership group behind it that Riot probably wants, regardless of like if the current staff is what Riot wants. So I would say like you probably have TL because they have all that crazy like Golden State Warrior investment from what Axiom.
Sure, Axiomatic,
yeah, Axiomatic, whatever. So I'd say like TL, C9, TSM, Dig, and then there's one other Immortals. I would say I feel pretty good about.
Did you not say Cloud9?
I just say C9. I think I did not say CLG.
Okay, so wait. So we've got TL.
You're gonna write it down. TL, TSM, C9,
Dig. You said Dig.
Dig, Immortals.
Okay.
And then I was like a little shaky on Echo Fox. Like I would like to think Echo Fox.
Okay.
And maybe P1 just because I feel like
you think P1 in there too?
Maybe. I mean, I personally like them, so it might be a little biased.
I mean, they have a pretty big ownership group as well.
Yeah,
in terms of investment.
Yeah, so I basically just listed everything with big investments. If you didn't notice,
Kelsey.
Yeah. See, I feel like when Riot say they want certain types of long-term partners, what they really have in mind are things like sports organizations and things like this. Like, so for me, if you have that kind of backing, or even if, like, your best bet is even to just change your name to something that reflects that you have that kind of backing when you're doing your application.
Elon Musk's
because I
team.
feel like
that's the name of it.
Yeah, I feel like Riot
Tesla
would just actively. They want kind of the mainstream involvement, even if that mainstream involvement hasn't even necessarily proven that it can field better teams, right? So it's just because of the branding and the validation that kind of comes with it. So.
Okay, so I actually disagree with that based off my interview with them, where they said that they would sway or lean towards esports experience instead of traditional sports experience or business experience. My guess is they want both.
I think they probably would want both, but also what they say in the interview isn't necessarily always going to reflect what they do.
People need to learn that there's a difference between what Riot Games Esports says and what they mean.
Monty Cristo.
Yeah.
Are you pulling a Monty right now?
Korean professional.
I mean, I'm not pulling a Monty, but I do think that there is something to that, though, just because, like, I even understand where they would come from if they would value like these types of traditional sports orgs, because it's like, okay, you have a track record where you can manage a team in this type of setting and things like this, even if it doesn't necessarily mean that sports teams are good esports teams. I mean, they're practically modeling their league and a lot of other things off of these ideas that they see from like how sports franchising works, and they've tried to model a lot of the LCS in the past in terms of production and things like this off of what they see in traditional sports. So it makes sense to me that they would value this a lot.
So the weird thing,
and also esports experience type people, like some of them have been hit or miss as well in terms of like where the money is coming from and stuff like this. So I can understand why Riot would take that approach.
Wait, so
which is why I'm kind of
Mark, I know
arguing
you have something, but I want to know, Kelsey, do you have guesses? Who would you say right now?
I mean, I kind of agree with Mark, except I might even say that.
So he said TL, TSM, C9, Dig, IMT, P1.
Maybe
P1. I might not even say TSM and C9. I mean, they have to, right?
Are you saying not TSM and C9?
I mean, I feel like they're safe. I feel like they're safe, but I almost feel like with my idea of what Riot wants, which isn't even necessarily consistent with what they actually want, it's just a guess that TSM or C9 might even be less safe than a team like, I don't know, Dig or...
I think,
well, I mean,
by your evaluation, C9 would be safe only because they picked up that giant ownership group with a couple of...
Whereas IMT and P1 don't have sports backing, which was what...
Well, IMT does.
Valued a lot.
They had like the Vancouver... they have like the Grizzlies and some other...
Yeah.
That's right.
But P1 has...
Lincoln Park.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big one, baby.
Studio thing, right? I forget what...
Yeah, P1, I don't think they have sports, but...
Paramount.
Yeah, he used to work there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, maybe TSM should be safe just sheerly by the brand and the amount of fan outrage, but just like by my logic, they might not be.
So I'm pinning you down as everything that Mark said because you still think TSM. And C9.
Yeah, I still think and Echo Fox. I'll be sure.
Oh, you'll add Echo Fox?
You're
wow.
about an Echo Fox. Okay.
Okay. All right. So he said 6 of the 10. You said 7. Emily.
Looking at teams in the league right now. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd say the ones that probably aren't safe are Envy, FlyQuest, possibly Echo Fox. CLG is a weird one to me. Like, just because if I were doing it, and maybe this is why I'm not running the league, but I would actually I would legit favor endemic esports orgs. But I kind of hope like CLG somehow gets some sort of
so you're saying everyone except for Envy.
Yeah, like if I'd probably give CLG the edge. So I'd say everyone but Envy and FlyQuest would be safe.
Wow, you guys are really generous. I feel like you guys are really generous.
You think that like
I don't see like so here's the other thing. I don't see like any other, and maybe you're just having some sort of org like create a team out of nowhere. But if I'm looking at the teams in Challenger right now, the only 2 I see that I would consider would be Goldcoin United and E United, and even like Goldcoin is like who is funding them. So I'm not really sure. Someone can totally correct me if they have like some sort of crazy sponsor that I don't know about, but
I think they have good money, but I can't remember where I read about it.
Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
Some of the management and stuff is like Gerard Kelly for Goldcoin United, right? It's like
By the way,
so that was gonna real quick before you give your list, Travis. That was something I was gonna say when you said like, oh, esports kind of like endemic people compared to like business people from traditional sports, like their world. And I think like neither of those are necessarily like ideal candidates, because I know a lot of people in esports who are like not super competent at what they do. And like they can talk a good game. In
terms of the teams that we're talking about here, because like when I think endemic esports orgs, the 4 I'm thinking of are CLG, Team Solo Mid, Cloud9, and Team Liquid. Yeah. Would you argue that those specific orgs, because that's who I'm thinking of when I say endemic esports orgs. Yeah. Would you argue that those specific organizations would be bad partners?
No.
Or I guess not have fairly competent management.
Some potentially. I'm thinking of one specific one.
Is it Team Liquid?
No, actually, that's a different. Whatever. I don't want to get into this.
I know you're gonna have a rant about.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to.
He doesn't want to call it CLG.
Yeah, that's more what it is. Like,
that's the thing, though. Is that
you just fade away. What I was just gonna say.
Shady individual managers on both the sports and the esports side, right? Mm-hmm. But the reason I think Riot might be more swayed towards the sports side is because to them it's like you have a track record, even if the guys you have right now are not so good. Like, well, that's why I think that might be something that Riot would do.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. The difference is between like I think some of the esports people are just like probably not competent for what is expected of them. And then what I would say from the sports traditional side is not that they're not competent, but they don't have the experience in the esports to understand like what resonates with fans, how the industry actually works, like what the hell is ad block, like these kinds of concerns they don't understand as well necessarily. And like some of the problems that we grew up in knowing just inherently from being in the scene.
Yeah.
So like I don't think either is necessarily better than the other.
Yeah, they can be equally bad.
Yeah, depending on like the specific person you're talking about. So I don't like the idea of even like favoring one or the other.
Okay, so by the way, you guys, somebody in Twitch chat, I've now lost their name, I'm sorry, pointed out, a couple of people did. FlyQuest actually does have Milwaukee Bucks backing them.
Oh, yeah. See, I always...
Which would make it so that Emily would say it's only Envy and Kelsey would say...
So do we know exactly the story on the FlyQuest backing? Because like there you
it's
have...
his son, I think the son, the Eden's family, I think the son of...
Remember Gravity?
Yeah.
Does FlyQuest not just sound like Gravity 2.0 to anyone else?
Okay, so...
Moving on.
No. But I do want to answer this, and we need to go to commercial break, so I want to wrap this up. But for me, maybe we should specify this. So I think there are a couple ways at looking at safety right now. I think somebody like CLG can feel safe, even though I wouldn't automatically qualify them in because they can get money, they can get backing, they have time, right? So right now, if Riot had to like say 100% certain who I'm almost certain is going to make it in right now, the only teams I would say are TSM and C9. TSM because I don't think you can afford to lose them. I think they said in my interview they really value the ability to create a competitive team, and TSM has more banners up in the LCS studio than anybody else, and C9 is pretty close behind them. And C9 also has shown that they can be a pretty successful business from what it looks like outside, and they've got the investment, right? So these guys are pretty safe. Everyone else, I think, has varying degrees of safety. Team Liquid is maybe okay, but this year is not a good time for this to be happening for them, right? Especially if they're valuing competitive stuff. You're pulling Steve in, and you're saying, like, dude, we think it'd be nice to have you in, but, like, what is this shit? And, like, why are you letting it happen, you know? And we'll talk about Team Liquid later, I guess. But then you've got IMT. IMT is interesting because they seem like they're okay, but like they have struggled to find sponsorship over the past year and a half. I don't think they have done the best job of building a brand off of the success that they had. Then you've got CLG. CLG, I think I would be, if I was right now, I'd be worried because I don't think CLG has the financial backing that you need for something like this. And there are sometimes questions about their management. George is sometimes around. George is sometimes not around. Like, it's like how invested this guy is. So you, if I'm right, I encourage the CLG to go find like a pretty big name, so I feel a little bit more safe about them. You've got, and then I think everybody else is just kind of a toss-up. Like Dig in particular, I'm looking at Dig and I'm saying like, okay, I have a question for you guys. Remember Dignitas before when they were in the LCS the first time? Think about Dignitas now. They've got the 76ers. Does it seem like anything has changed about this Dignitas?
Well, I mean, I think that kind of, in my mind, it kind of brings up an interesting point in terms of looping back around to evaluating permanent partners as organizations, because it is really difficult in esports to get someone to value an organization over a player. Like, players have the majority of marketing, I think, or like the bulk of the marketing power, with obvious exception. The obvious exception is TSM and maybe more recently C9. But like, thinking of like when you said, oh, Dignitas back then, I think of like the players themselves and their popularity and why people liked that team. I don't think people who would call themselves fans of Dignitas now would necessarily like have the same
I just don't think
reasoning.
there are people that would call themselves fans of Dignitas.
Well, you can also make that point too, that like when these high profile players left, a lot of fans left with them, which again brings up another concern of how am I going to market myself as an organization if I'm a permanent partner?
So one of the things for me with orgs that already exist with backing is like, I don't know what a different org that's not them is going to bring to stand out. Like, if you bring in some more dumb sports money who doesn't quite understand esports correctly, like what business proposal are they going to throw together that sounds better than what Dig, let's say, already has. Because, like, they at least have been in the scene for a year. They can say, like, this didn't work. We're going to change this stuff, blah, blah, blah. The new org coming in who's trying to take Dig's spot, hypothetically, has nothing in theory, like nothing like that they're bringing other than like, we have a lot of money in sports background as well. And it's like, Dig's like, yeah, we had that too. It's a hard scene to get into.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's the other thing that we haven't brought up is the extra $3 million too, right? Like I think that's a big concern.
So,
because it's an extra $3 million for orgs that aren't already.
Yeah, that's why a team like CLG is a lot safer, because you just go to CLG and you buy equity in their team and then you back them, and so you don't have to worry about the $3 million and replacing them. But I think with the Dig stuff, okay, Dig has to apply through the same application process, right?
Yes.
And you have to pitch the stuff like they have it on the. Well, we can take it from the screen here, which I have in front of me. It's like you need a brand plan, who your owners are, the business plan, and the team strategy.
Yeah.
So the brand plan, for instance, how does the team plan to engage with and acquire fans? What's their strategy for providing value to the fans through merchandise, et cetera? Why should fans support them?
Yep.
So if you're Dignitas and you're applying right now and you've got this brand plan, and you're like, guys, 76ers is backing you. Like, what has 76ers done to add value to your brand? I personally don't feel like it's that much right now. And then, Elon Musk walks in the door and it's like, hey, well, let me tell you about how I built the brand of Tesla and how I'm going to take a lot of lessons I learned there. You're probably going to put more faith in Elon than in 76ers, because it's like, guys, you've had how long to figure this out and you haven't done much with it. So
6 months?
Yeah. Well,
but that's not very long.
It's not very long, but like it doesn't feel like they've tried anything to me. Sure.
And I would agree with that. But, like, at the same time, they came in, 76ers didn't try and make a random new org that no one knows who they are. They bought an existing org, and they tried to make it relevant again. They went out and got what you would think is top-tier talent for the most part. They got Someday and Chase. That's, like, a good plan. Like, you're trying to build a competitive team. They tried to get Korean coaching staff. Didn't quite work. Like, a lot of the ideas they went for weren't bad ideas, and I don't want to evaluate them off the fact that they didn't work out.
Yeah.
It's like, could the 76ers have pushed Dig more? I don't know. Is there Dig stuff in the 76ers stadium?
Yeah, there's.
Well, there you go. Like, they're doing stuff.
Yeah.
How effective is it for you? Not. You don't live in Philadelphia. How effective is it for people in Philadelphia?
So then the question is, if you're building like a global league, how effective is putting a banner? Like that's nice that you did that, but was it a good brand decision?
Well, what's Elon Musk bringing? You don't even have an idea. You're saying hypothetically, Elon Musk is a genius, and he's going to bring this excellent game plan for how we're going to take over the world.
I'm just saying you've got multiple applications in front of you.
Yes, exactly,
and that's why I think, and so I guess that's backing up. That is why I am very concerned if I am anyone that isn't like
already successful.
Cloud9, TSM, maybe CLG if I know I'm going to get a backer or whatever, because. Like the amount they are going to get so many people that are going to that are going to submit proposals. Like they're just going to get an influx, right? Like,
yes,
I wouldn't be surprised if they get 50, 100, like, and they're going to have so many big names attached to them. And
that's what I mean is eventually the big name doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, maybe.
Because you're like, oh, Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, Barack Obama, like you said. Like you just start getting so many
a lot
names.
of it is just the pitch. A lot of it is just the pitch.
A lot of it's the pitch. Yeah. And like that's why hypothetically, I don't know what anyone's bringing better than Dig. And I'm not even saying Dig.
Barack Obama ran the country. You don't think he could do better than Dig?
I'd be like, what do you know about esports? And he's like, I joked about it once to make myself seem more pleasing to, because I read a poll and it said that I should say this. That's great.
I played in China for a while,
Yeah.
I don't.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not saying that maybe I'm wrong and like way more teams get replaced, but I don't know what any big name is going to bring beyond what we've already seen big names bring, and it hasn't been that much. Like, what has the big names done for TL, Dig, Echo Fox? Like, none of these teams are, like, crushing it.
I don't know. Rick's name actually did bring a lot to Echo Fox.
Well, in terms of, like, positive spin to the league, yes, I will agree with that.
They've made a lot of really questionable decisions, but I do think that, like...
Right, and that's what I'm saying is, like, the difference between big name usefulness and endemic usefulness.
Okay. So when we come back, we'll be wrapping up our franchise conversation, talking about the Players Association, which got announced. We're going to go to break. We'll see you right after this.
There's no way you get that.
March 15th, 44 BC, Rome. The Emperor Yilang Pang, known as Doublelift, rules over CLG with an iron fist through many years of war. Just as he is about to establish himself as a member of CLG for life, his best friend and teammate, Afromu, along with other members of the CLG Senate, make their move and stab him 35 times on Twitter, killing CLG Doublelift and giving rise to TSM Doublelift. This story has been confirmed true by a man outside named Mark. I'm Buddy Hutton, and this is True Esports History.
Well, we're back to talk about more of this franchise announcement from last week. So, Emily, maybe you want to kick us off because you were super excited. You almost jumped the gun earlier talking about the Players Association.
Well, I mean, it just, I guess it surprised me that that was part of their announcement. It's actually not something I was expecting because that was, again, like Kelsey and I did a video about this. We've also talked about it on the show where I went on like another mini rant about this.
Well, here, I'll introduce the topic, I guess. So the I think I wrote for the lower third on this one, does anyone care about the Players Association? And the reason I said that is because I don't think anyone has talked about this. I mean, some people were so busy talking about the franchise stuff. I actually think a majority of people probably haven't even noticed that this got announced. And I'm gonna go through it, and I'll throw it to you, Mark, while we're holding hands. Okay. The whole situation is that Riot is now going to help fund a Players Association. So there will be coming up soon, I think maybe even started now, but in the next couple of weeks, players will have a chance to vote. This is professional players will have a chance to vote for a legal group that will help begin the process of formalizing an association for all these players to be a part of and represent the players in the forming of this association. And at that point in time, the association will start to employ or provide access to players to things like agents and people that can help them figure out how to invest stuff and people who can help them look at their contracts and all this kind of stuff so that players have better resources available to them. So in a sense, it's almost more like what Snoopy and those guys announced, the Players Resource Center, which we never heard anything else about. But the Players Resource Center, the interesting thing is, to me, based off of my interview with them, with Riot, it doesn't sound like this association is going to have much of a role in advocating for the players' behalf in Riot and owner and player conversations. Like, it just, I kept trying to kind of press on like, all right, so is there a voting process and do players have a seat where they can vote on these different issues? And it sounds more like they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to listen to the association whenever, and we'll take their feedback. It's sort of like, yeah, when I was working at the smoothie store, I used to take the feedback from the customers who thought that it was too watery. That didn't actually mean that I cared.
Did you actually work at a smoothie store?
I did.
Is what I want to know.
Can I try one of your smoothies?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a special one for your night.
Second of all, I think that was kind of the weird thing. So going into this, before they announced the Players Association, I thought it was going to be really weird because Riot is, and if we look at past examples of leagues and players unions kind of arbitrating with each other, it's the owners and the players, and then they sit down at a table and hash out all these different things. Now, Riot is this weird, awkward middleman in kind of when I was thinking about it previously. And now it's also a little bit awkward to me because, just stating the obvious, it's a bit weird to have Riot being the one organizing the Players Association. And I'm not saying they shouldn't care about the players, and I'm not even saying that they're acting in bad faith, because I don't think that's it. It's just always better to have an outside viewpoint, in my opinion, for the players to kind of come to the table themselves. And the other interesting thing that ties into what you said, Travis, is it really sounds like Riot's still going to be running the league, and then the owners come to the table and the players come to the table and they say whatever they want to say, but then ultimately the decisions are left up to Riot. At least that is how this entire presentation made it seem like to me. And do I have some concerns about that? Yes, because I think each party should have a little bit more say in what goes on, especially with all the buy-ins that are going on. But that, I guess, like, that's how I saw it after this overview.
I think owners will be more involved, but I don't have as much faith that the players will be.
So yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like, that was the first thing. The only kind of community reaction I saw about the Players Association was like, one was like kind of like finally, and the other one was, why is Riot making it? That sounds like, you know, kind of weird to have one of the three supposed parties building the other party in some sense, where it's like Riot owners and then, oh, players can't figure it out themselves, we'll try and help them along. But to be fair, that's on the players. Like, I'm not like, Riot, what are you doing? I'm like, you guys are really nice trying to help these guys out, because there's a chance you make this lawyer group and they talk to the players and then they make a union, and now they're going to insert themselves larger into this discussion, which is what should happen.
Right.
Like, if I'm a player and I'm like, franchising's coming around and I want X amount of rev share directly going into player salaries, the way, you know, that actually works in traditional sports is that X amount of the percentage has to go to players, usually around 50% or something, from my understanding. Like, it's pretty high. Maybe it's not 50%. Actually, I think
it depends. It varies.
Yeah, per league. But either way, like, Riot might be building like the tool that makes this whole thing way harder to function for the players. Which, like, kind of hats off to them. Like, if they if it goes that far,
way harder to function for Riot because
because now they have an extra party that they have to deal with. Whereas before, it's hard enough to get on the same page with the owners, obviously.
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot, and I think everyone is in agreement it would be best if the players did this for themselves to kind of address everything. But there's
properly.
I know. I was going to make a joke while Travis was saying they're going to vote on representative. That was going to be like, I hope they take it more seriously than the.
Don't let Smoothie make
That's the sad thing. Is like, I was talking with Scar about this when it got announced, and I was like, "Oh, who do you pick?" And I'm like, probably Bjergsen. He's like the most responsible player I can think of, but he's way too.
But he doesn't care. No, you've the only people that I have figured out that care about this is Xpecial, High.
So I said Xpecial was probably my vote.
Yeah, and Nori is actually really passionate about this.
Yeah, so that's when I've asked around, because we were trying to figure out like who can we even talk to on the player side who will have something to say about this, in their opinion, or even care. And the only three names I was able to find were Nori, High, and Xpecial.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is like you're picking between three people. That's fine. I hope it works out, and I hope they really get their stuff figured out before this goes much further, because they should be like inserting themselves into the conversation now.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, go ahead, Kelsey.
I was just gonna say, I think it's even more relevant now because for some reason the idea of region locking is coming up again now that franchising is in place, because some people seem to think that if franchising in place, you don't need region locking anymore for some reason. So like things like this are going to matter a lot more to players, right? And so I think you have to have, like, before these types of conversations can take place, I think you have to have players on board for sure. So I hope it works out.
Yeah, I just wish I think I brought this up in my interview. It's really weird because the league is changing in dramatic ways, more than it's ever changed since its very formation. And the Players Association will hopefully be up and running just after all these changes are implemented. It's sort of
just in time to have their contract signed. The ink is fresh, and then it's like, we got ourselves figured out. Oh, we just signed away all of our rights.
Yeah, the whole system has changed, and we had no say in that. So I have always been, this is why I think I get the shill moniker. I've had more faith in Riot's ability to keep the interests of the players in a good place, but with a few notable exceptions like scheduling and that kind of thing. But I still think it's really kind of unfortunate, the timing on this stuff. Though, again, the funny thing is none of us would even be talking about this if they hadn't announced the Players Association. Like, everybody would just be talking about the franchising stuff and not really worried about the players.
I think some industry people would probably be like, where are the players in this?
Yeah. I would have brought it up.
Yeah, I think some people would have, but it wouldn't have been, like, the conversation would be totally different. Just like, when are the players going to figure, it's still kind of that way, but at least now it's like, Riot's going to give you the tools, hopefully, to build your own players union. Please do it.
Yeah. To clarify a conversation I see happening between Risen Lazarus and some other people in the Twitch chat, This is not a union. This is just an association. So really, it's very different from something where there's like binding agreements between all these different people, and
Well, I think eventually it should.
Well,
you want it to be a union.
Yeah, I think that's really far down the road, though.
Yeah, but I mean, that's
basically all they said was, so this is exactly what it says under like the end result. Fully launched, the Players Association provides centralized representation for players in tri-party negotiations, Riot, and then owners and players, like I said, so the big three. They also provide access to vetted resources, legal and financial advice to help players in planning out their careers.
Yeah. So.
Great.
That's good.
Probably still want some say in the contracts.
No. Yeah, you definitely, like, I mean, my end goal for this would be to have, like, a fully functioning actual players union that can arbitrate on their own behalf.
Yeah. But I do appreciate Risen Lazarus bringing this conversation up in the Twitch chat and moderating. Actually, he said just don't use my name, so then I'm just using it a lot.
Well,
what's his real name? Maybe that's what he meant.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. We should find that out.
Oh, you don't know?
I do.
Oh, you do?
Drop it.
His name?
No, he might not want that to happen.
Well, coward. All right. Anything else on the Players Association? We've used almost exactly an hour to talk about this, which is what I think we had allotted for a franchise.
Perfect. Let's move on.
All right. All right, Mark, you want to talk to us a little bit about NA's upside down start?
Sure. So obviously, when you have 4 teams, what happened was TSM, C9, FlyQuest, and P1 went 1-7 collectively. The only one winning a series being TSM. Those are the top 4 teams from playoffs last split, going 0-4 with, or basically 0-8 with almost no changes happening in their rosters. And with each team, you're going to have a different reason, but I can't think of a time where like it was this upside down right at the start. I know it's only 1 week, whatever, but
isn't it already like, okay, maybe slightly more dramatic than normal, but I feel like the first week, like the first couple of weeks of every split is like, oh man, all these teams are so close together. Oh, this team has got a crazy storyline I never would have thought. And
that's
I like Travis's Reddit voice.
That's usually how it is. But the thing that's weird this time is that nothing happened in the off season. You have like 1 or 2 big moves. You have Dardoch Smithy as like one of the big ones.
Well, but Double Lift was a pretty big one, and
that should have made.
But there are things besides roster changes that are big moves, like TSM going to MSI and only having 1 week worth of practice. That's a pretty big.
What happened to C9?
C9?
Yeah, what happened to C9?
They went on vacation.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
They played Ray.
No, they played Ray.
The entire 2
it means
that's the big change.
Yeah, the player that they were using all last split and then won some series with him at the end, and he was played in the final.
But, I mean, TSM, Cloud9 did have some tough games, right?
Yeah, they probably had the hardest strength of schedule potentially with CLG.
Well, TSM also had a hard schedule.
TSM was pretty hard under the assumption that Immortals is actually good.
Yeah.
If they're not actually going to be a top 14, then why did TSM lose to them? Other than like, okay, they haven't been playing that long. But it was weird, like, just going down, like, why did P1 suck? Right? Like, how about that one?
Well,
I mean, I think you could have seen that coming, actually, based on some of the decisions that they made in the offseason and towards the end of last split. Like, they were already kind of going down a little bit, so I'm not too surprised that P1 were bad.
Yeah, P1, as much as I enjoy their story from last split, it always feels like they were the team that just kind of, like, accidentally looked good in spring split. You know what I mean?
I don't think they accidentally.
Yeah,
I would actually argue.
I mean, they had like
them looking accidentally.
There was just chaos. Like in any other split, a team like that would have like they're subbing in Meteos, who doesn't really give a crap about anything.
Their actual like play on the Rift, I would argue, says otherwise.
I guess. I mean, but a team like that shouldn't be doing so well.
Maybe, but
I mean, they have the best 1-3-1 setup of any team. Like, I'm not going to take that away from them. Just
I'm not.
Zig's
Emily, at what point in time did I say I'm taking away their 1-3-1?
Well, you're saying that in any other season they wouldn't look good, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, when have the top 4 teams ever looked phenomenal? There's usually like 1 or 2 that's like below.
I guess so.
There's usually like C9, TSM, and like CLG.
I just don't feel like P1.
By week 3, it was already C9, FlyQuest, and TSM. But week 1, it was C9, FlyQuest, and Phoenix 1 at 1-1. The only 2 teams were C9, FlyQuest. And FlyQuest did
also-
Yeah, so that's the one I can
sense
kind of
towards the
see the
end.
most, and I can understand TSM not practicing a lot, but I'm actually am kind of surprised that like it wasn't just that C9 lost, it was that they like didn't look good at all. And I know Ray's in there, blah blah blah, but like he wasn't that bad last split, and they should have been practicing, and they should be well rested, whatever. In terms of teams that you're expecting to come out and do well, like what we said, spring split, which was true, was that they're going to come out and do well. Not the case this time.
Well, I mean, so they faced TSM, which if you're presuming that TSM are going to be a good team, then you would usually say that they'd probably lose to TSM. Maybe you'd say it would be a 2-1 or like a 2-1 in C9's favor. You know what I mean? Because
Like
usually
close.
those teams are pretty close. Yeah. So maybe the fact that it was 2-0 was surprising. The CLG thing, that they also faced CLG. So again, it depends on how good you think CLG are going to end up being. I actually wasn't all that impressed with that series in general.
Oh no!
I
Game
thought
2
it
and
was
3.
not good.
No.
I was watching this and I was like, ooh, this is rough. This is really rough for the first series of the new split.
You didn't like the ARAM?
No,
with the cannon?
no, I did
Flip
not.
Flip cannon
I thought that
5v5?
was bad.
No way.
I thought it was
No
bad.
Was that really inconsistent with what NA has been, though? I feel like...
I felt like
I mean-
they,
especially not at the beginning of the, because I think we always see this at the beginning of most splits where people kind of are stuck with what they know what to do on the new patch, especially with all the changes that come in off seasons, even in a shorter off season like this, and default to ARAM.
sure.
It's unfortunate.
But I mean, like Phoenix One, for example, was a team that you said had a good
Yeah,
one,
and then
I
they
agree
just-
with. Yeah, and then now they're just bad. Like, what happened? I mean, I understand. Yeah, maybe Shady should not be the support for this team, I think is what Kelsey was getting at a little. But that's still strange to me that like Ryu just didn't look good on anything other than like his Ari game, I think.
I mean, Ryu does that too sometimes. Having followed him for a while, I don't think Ryu is that consistent, and I think that if he feels like, if you notice a trend with Ryu where if like his side lanes aren't doing that well, he does poorly, and it just becomes like an entire sandwich that starts like to fray on the sides and collapses in the middle.
I have never seen a sandwich like that. I've never had my sandwich like fray
bread
and then just dips out in the
bread
middle.
disintegrates.
Yeah, I'm like, what they made in my hands.
Chinese sandwiches are very different.
I've never been to China.
It's a traditional
You've
Chinese
never had-
cuisine.
Or I've never had a burger where like the bun disintegrates. 'Cause
Yeah.
I have.
I've had the get too greasy.
Yeah,
Guys,
it gets gross.
Kelsey's trying to talk.
Come on, bagel sandwiches. Let's go. How do you think bagel sandwiches got like that?
Oh, it makes so. I thought they baked them like that. I'm so dumb.
I'm glad I could impart this knowledge to you. Anyway, so yeah, Ryu was like that on H2K. I didn't pay as much attention because I didn't start to notice it when he was back in Korea on KT, so I can't speak as strongly for that. But I
mean,
started to notice.
He had two
H2K.
side lanes that drew a lot of pressure and a jungler that drew a lot of pressure. So
It became like a thing over a while with H2K, and then H2K developed these really, really strong side lanes, and when their side lanes did well, Ryu started to do much better and things like this. So this is like something that I think that could easily translate to P1 as well if his side lanes struggle more.
Okay, so the question that follows this up, of course, is: should any of the teams be concerned? So, I think like TSM, we can mostly say no, right? We can skip that one for the most part.
I actually think Cloud9 will probably figure stuff out just because I don't think they change too much. It's going to, again, like, so how well they do for me is going to depend on how well some of these other teams, like specifically if I'm looking at just week 1, I'm looking obviously at CLG and Immortals and how they performed. So if those teams can continue to improve following the jungle swap that everyone's talking about, then I would be concerned if I was C9. Otherwise, C9 kind of always finds a way. So I'm not like super concerned about them after week 1. P1, I'd be very concerned
Okay.
because that's a radical. I mean, like you could see the slow decline, but it's obviously like a very different look from that team in terms of what they're bringing. I don't know.
My thing about C9, and this is kind of more throwing it out there to see what you think. What if they're just super overrated in terms of their actual ability to improve? So going all the way back to summer 2016, they were not that great of a team until Riot killed lane swaps for them, and they could take standard lanes every game and give Impact Gnar, and he can start solo killing people. And then since that point in time, they haven't actually improved at all.
I mean, I'd support that. But I'd also then say, okay, what have you been doing rest of North America?
Yeah, I would agree. And that's why I'm saying maybe this is time to start getting concerned, because maybe Immortals actually stays up there. I think CLG is pretty good. They didn't show in that series for sure, but
not in the first series.
Not in the first series, and then the TL ones, it's versus TL, right? So like whatever. But there's a chance that like Dardoch actually starts being an early game beast again. And then you have this team with like maybe Afro can hopefully not get forced onto Karma Lulu duty and stuff like that. Maybe it's a scary team and TSM bounces back, and then you're suddenly looking at like you're fourth now, C9, out of nowhere, and they I don't think they actually have a good track record of improving.
I mean, you say that, but these guys fought their way through a gauntlet.
You mean after the
roster change?
Yeah, after they also killed lane swaps, so they didn't need to do that.
And because people had no idea how to play around Baron.
So, anyways, it's
all that proves is that there's going to be some weird zany thing that happens in the game that's going to allow them to. Yeah, the developers are sitting there going like, "All right,
they're
what do these guys
studying it
need
right now.
Yeah.
What boost do we got to give these guys?"
C9 is something high.
Yeah.
CCC available still.
Yeah.
Anyways,
in North America, all you really have to do is make a call, and then everyone goes there together, and you 5v5 it, and it's fine. It's good. You're good.
Anyways, all right, that's it for that one.
Okay, well, before we get out of this, because I'm sure a lot of people want to talk about it, it is kind of the biggest story. Double back to Dardoch and Xmithy. I'm trying to remember, where did we all stand or fall on how we felt about that previously? In the last episode?
So for me personally, I said probably isn't going to work out for Immortals, and the CLG, it could work out depending on like how well Dardoch integrates into the team.
I expressed a lot of skepticism on Dardoch, and I was kind of whatever on Xmithy. And I think everybody kind of felt that way.
Yeah, right? I was more down on Immortals than CLG.
But either way, like based off, is it too early to say that this seems to have surpassed expectations?
Yes.
It definitely has. Immortals, one thing I'll say is that Xmithy had a lot of good early ganks to make the game easier for them. And they weren't crazy ganks. It was like, I think it was, he did full blue side clears and then cheese gank, leaving his red jungle up. And then he did that top once to get Flame and early kill in the Shen Fiora matchup. And then he did it once bot lane to help out Immortals versus TSM. So like,
I actually want to talk about that one. Because I actually thought that this was like more thoughtful than you're giving it credit for, because he does like, they are aware, if you watch the start of that game, they're aware that the blue buff gets warded. So I think he actually varied his path to start rates and then go blue grump into gank, because I think they weren't expecting it based on the fact that TSM weren't expecting it based on the fact that they had warded the blue buff. So I actually thought that was like fairly clever. So yeah, but anyway, continue.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that whether it's clever or not, like there were really good early games for Xmithy, like much better than I think anyone was expecting. And if he ever stops doing that, like, is this team gonna be able to keep performing? I don't know, but that would be my only concern, because it seemed like in the mid late game they were fine.
Yeah, I think the thing about Immortals that was, so there was like Xmithy, and that kind of plays into how I see him as a jungler, I guess, which is someone who can adjust just based on the massive amount of experience he has. I think the thing that struck me the most is that, and I'm not going to say it was perfect because there are a lot of times that they screw this up, but they managed to get everyone involved a lot more than I was used to seeing them. And that was the thing that struck me. So if the communication has somewhat improved enough to continue making advantageous skirmishes or team fights, that's actually pretty huge for them when you look at their play last split. When Travis asked, is it too early to tell? That's actually what my yes was for. I think it's way too early to tell because it's only 2 series for each jungler. So like, even though I'm happy that it looked pretty good for them week 1, I'm not sold on any of these teams right now. So
International Law 17 says Xmithy is literally at the level of SKT, Peanut, and KT Score.
That's an interesting opinion.
Sounds great. You want to bring him on the show next week?
I mean, it could be a her.
Hey,
We don't know.
Kelsey, we're going to Skype in with...
Wasn't he the one that Doublelift said was literally better than Dandy, if I remember correctly?
I think so, yeah.
He said that yesterday, I think, too.
He's just always believed it, Xmithy. All right. Now, next up, Mark, another topic for Mark, which is the one TL rant. And this one might be short and sweet, but I'm going to lean back in my chair. And
it's not going to be as full of vitriol as like previous ones yesterday, maybe, but just that I'm trying to petition like most of the shows I'm on to just kind of like leave TL alone until they finally do something positive. Not because I don't want to make fun of them.
Leave TL alone?
No, it's not a leave Brittany alone rant. It's just like I don't want to talk. Like they're bad. They're just bad, and I don't blame the players because like they got offered contracts probably for good money to go back and try it again, and the org was like, "Don't worry, we'll do this stuff right this time." And like, who knows exactly what's going on behind the scenes? So there's not really much to talk about other than like we saw this roster fail for 6 weeks last split. I don't want to talk about them again until something good happens. And I'm just sick of seeing it because it's like I understand Golden Glue's not a good mid laner. He probably should stop getting contracts with LCS teams until like he starts performing in some other way beyond scrims. And I don't know how that opportunity happens, but like just it's not his fault that he got signed again until it was like, we believe in you this time. And then like they ended their, kind of article with like, we believe in Golden Glue.
Yeah, but people I don't think are blaming Golden
Glue. I don't think they are, but like,
yeah,
I don't see it much either. Most people are blaming the org. And like, I agree with that. But when you don't know what's happening, because like maybe Golden Glue actually requested to get subbed out.
Well, okay, I do have, I agree with you that probably after this week, we just ignore Team Liquid. But there's an interview I did with Steve, which is coming out probably tomorrow, and in it, and everybody who's watching this VOD, the VOD will be up tomorrow. So
just give it away right now. No one's gonna watch.
Everyone's gonna watch it. It's a great interview. I do great content. But in it, Steve basically was implying they didn't have very many off-season options, which is what you were saying before. So I just want to make sure, like, let's just really quickly have this conversation so we don't have to have it next week.
Exactly.
Were there off-season options? What could they have done during the off-season or during the break to fix this? Or were they just stuck?
I agree that you have very limited options in the short amount of time that you had to like make moves. And I think that's why overall in North America, you didn't see that many, especially potentially with other factors like franchising looming and like some stuff like that. Who knows exactly? But that said, that this roster will not work. Like, and just do anything different. Like, go get a random Korean solo queue player who looks nasty in mid lane.
I would advise against that. But
well,
yes.
Put him with Golden Glue.
I mean, yeah, you'd advise on Golden Glue before a nasty Korean import?
I would say...
yes.
They'd probably both work out about the same.
Great.
Given track record.
But at least one of them has a higher chance than the other.
Put him...
Probably Golden Glue.
Really?
Yeah, like, you don't need to
after all these years, Golden Glue is still better?
Yeah.
I'm not saying bring him over and like hype him up and bring all this PR around him.
That's all I have to say is Nahun.
I don't get Nahun.
No, I think they should get Nahun.
Wasn't
Nahun was a random Korean.
Yeah, Nahun was a random Korean.
Well, he was in LSPL previously, wasn't he?
Yeah, but they didn't take him because of that. They took him because Wisdom was duo queuing with him in Korea and decided he was really good. And they picked him up on solo queue because if you actually bothered to even look at his OPGG, he literally only played Katarina. And then he comes up
and then he was not good in Katarina.
So I'm not saying do the exact. Well, you know what? I take it back. I would rather have a random Nahun than Golden Glue.
I wouldn't.
Get Turtle or Alltech, one of the two NA free agent AD carries instead of Piglet, who has not done anything since season 6 spring.
I mean, that's something you need to address, though, when you're talking about Team Liquid, because they've said over and over and over that they are fully committed to Piglet. And like even just taking a step back and not judging that situation, like that's definitely part of it. Like they've said previously they're fully committed to this player. So he's not going.
I mean, they said the same thing about Golden Glue.
That's true.
And
But
Golden Glue definitely went somewhere overnight.
History proves that they are willing to stick with Piglet
They would
so much
rather-
so
yeah.
that they would play him mid than not.
Yeah. Okay,
get
so it doesn't
another
matter.
AD carry.
I don't really care because, like, okay, we all agree Team
And
Liquid
but-
is stubborn and stupid
Yeah, I mean,
about
by
this
the way,
stuff.
I'm not like trying to poop on Piglet because he actually, like, if you saw him, like, he was
His Twitch game was-
trying. Yeah, like that Twitch game, I actually actively felt bad for him because.
Yeah, but the point is, this roster will not work.
Oh yeah.
And they came out and they said meta's better, coaching staff's different. We believe in Golden Glue. Like, all the preseason messaging was just kind of baffling, and then like with the week 1 change, extra baffling. So like, I would have rather
The
seen.
change is what makes it for me because it's fine to go in and be like, okay, we still have enough time or whatever, but like to change it immediately after you
Okay,
said
but
that.
back to the question.
And if you're one last point was just like, if you're gonna even open this realm of possibilities where you might change it week 1, like, where is the forethought? We're like, maybe this roster doesn't work out. That's why I'm saying get like a random Korean mid, Golden Glue starts, have him in the house practicing with him. Maybe he's Garbo.
I mean, even if you're
and
not
even if you
getting
get,
a random Korean mid, like try something.
something.
else.
Yeah.
Are there any
But I don't-
Europeans that were available?
Yeah, maybe a European mid, get a Chinese player.
What
First
happened
Chinese
to all
import
the
ever.
NA mids? Shouldn't that
I
be a topic?
have a list. You know how Envy got
They'll start
Niski?
playing
I
AD
have
carry.
a list of people who are like. I have a list of actual names of EU mids that would be just as good as Niski. So that's
contact
slightly better
Kelsey because she
solution.
has a good list of
that's
European mids.
great. I would love to see that plan where like you have Golden Glue more as a fail safe than your primary option, and you try and import somebody and you get data and you're like, maybe this guy works out, and if he doesn't, well, great. Golden Glue is already the 10th best mid laner. He's already the worst mid laner in the LCS most likely, based off what we saw of his previous split. So like, you're literally signing up to have the 10th worst mid and not getting a realistic backup option. Like, no flame at Slushy, but
He
like,
might be the 11th worst mid. There's probably some subs or somewhere.
yeah, you look at the Challenger series.
maybe the 12th best mid.
Yeah. Either way, the point is like, if you wanted to commit to it, I think that's bad, but I understand limited options. But if you're going to be willing to like make random moves over the course of the split, then like make a couple more in the preseason that are arguably random, and then you at least have been having them in house and you're doing other things, because I don't think Slushy is going to come
Even before
back.
you get there, does this team even know how to play League of Legends? Like, that's, I think for me, this is a big issue. Like, even before you start talking about the roster, like, what are they doing in practice that...
I have no idea.
Didn't you see that game where if your jungler gets picked off at 5 minutes, your game plan is seed everything? That was that's League of Legends at its finest right there.
Or you lose to Gate playing Sejuani support.
Okay, so we're locking down the Team Liquid topic. I'm worried for you though, Mark, because I feel like this is a team that can't just quietly lose. I feel like Team Liquid is going to go do some weird stuff in a second, and we're going to have to talk about it again.
If it's weird, then like the point we made right now still stands, which is like,
You should have had a better plan.
you should have a better plan coming in. Like, if Golden Glue wasn't going to work out, oh my God, who would have seen that coming? You didn't already have a backup in place, and like Slushy was your backup. And once again, no shade at Slushy for who he is, but like, he wasn't a great mid laner in NA. And if you're trying to like build for the future with Golden Glue as your backup safety net, I don't know.
Bring back GG.
Sure.
Big fat GG.
What's he doing
what's
now?
NY Jackie up to?
Yeah. All right. So we're done with Team Liquid until we're not. Now, what the bleep is the Echo Fox meme team is Emily's topic.
I'm killing North America.
I'm so excited for
killing
how
North America.
awkward Mark is going to feel during this.
I'll see.
All right.
I don't get awkward. Well, that's not true.
You're already turning red a bit.
You already are.
This is the same problem where like as I get like talk
Yeah.
more and more, my face starts getting red and everyone thinks I'm angry.
You
Like
see
the
me?
TS,
I'm
the
fair-skinned.
TSM rant where
I'm
you got,
fair-skinned.
Like, red.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we had this team announced by Echo Fox. I actually had to check to make sure that
Take a
it
cold
was
shower.
not a joke.
Yeah, because Daily Dot like leaked it or their
Yeah, so and I read it, and the way it was phrased, I was like, is this actually real? And then it comes out that it is. And you know, our producer Ryan actually asked me. He was like, "Oh man, does this mean that Mark won't have time for the show?" And I was like, "I will be shocked if they practice."
Mark, we wouldn't have allowed Mark to come on the show if he was the coach, but because he's only an analyst, he can actually stay on League Weekly.
So I guess
Yeah.
I get it's not that I don't understand like how this happened in terms of franchising being announced, but for someone who constantly comes on the show, and I'm not even throwing shade at you, but just in general, like every week we come on and we're like, what's wrong with North America? And I feel like
throwing shade at
this is a shining example of like, which is fine. Like if they want to go and make money and I guess build like a brand, more of a brand for Echo Fox, but like, I don't know, maybe I take things too seriously. It's something people tell me over and over in my life, aka Travis. But like, I just don't, I guess it seems like it's almost like spitting in the face of teams that are actually trying to become permanent partners. Like if I am a Riot and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I get it. The challenger spots, they might not be as worth as much because obviously you're not guaranteed a slot in the league, regardless if you win challenger or not. But like, there are teams that are actually actively trying to put their best foot forward, try to make their case as permanent partners, and then this team comes along. And to me, it's just like spitting in the face of all the other teams that are trying. It just seems
so.
Really
the better way to prep this topic, by the way,
me.
I'll let Mark respond in a second.
Yeah.
But the better way to prep this topic, Emily, would have been to just say, all right, I have a little bit of a clip that I want to roll at the start of the show. And it's just the previous episode where Mark's like, teams just need to take this more seriously. And he's not trying.
So I agree.
His TSM rant.
Teams need to take it more seriously. That's the teams that exist. And so when you say, you know, we're the teams that are vying for partnership, like that's not like Echo Fox is already in the LCS. They already have their challenger team, which can't compete for a promotion tournament spot. That's been ruled by Riot. If you have the sister teams can't compete. So it's not like we're taking someone out of promotion relegation potentially. Additionally, without getting into specifics, I can't really get into this too much, but we did not take this opportunity away from another challenger team.
Oh yeah, that's I want
that to be clear that there's like not 5 players who should be in the challenger series right now who aren't. And I can't get into why that's the case necessarily, but that's the case.
Like I trust you on that.
I told you in the beginning.
Yeah, it's my point is more that like, so I'm Riot and I'm looking at people who want to be permanent partners, and instead of, I guess, like taking it a bit more seriously, maybe trying to find, like, I know you said like, oh, you know, we couldn't find a team. I don't know. It just seems almost slightly mean-spirited to me.
But why? They have a in-house 10-man roster that scrims, and they didn't want to use that roster to compete in a series that doesn't benefit them in any way. They don't want to lose scrim time with their sister team competing in this other league.
Kelsey.
From my understanding, and I could be wrong, maybe Echo Fox comes out and clarifies, but they don't want 3 hours to be gone of their challenger team on Wednesdays and Thursdays competing in a league that doesn't benefit the team at all. They're actually taking it more seriously for their main roster, and they have a spot that they're using to gain publicity and fans.
Kelsey?
My question is, and I know a little bit of something about like how they're using their sister team to scrim or whatever, so I understand that decision. But the question is, like, do they really feel that there's zero benefit to having those players like get some professional matches, even if they are like online matches? Like, is there really zero benefit to that?
I can't answer that for that org because I'm really not that. I'm not like Echo Fox Mark-Z now. Like
you're only a coach for the cameras, much like Monte Cristo.
I am a figurehead coach. No, I'm there to just like, these guys haven't played in forever. I'm just here to facilitate. Do you think they're gonna update their tournament clients and like remind them of this stuff? And like, we don't have a jungler. All right, so who's helping them like talk about some jungle routes and stuff? Like, I'm not leading this team or anything. I'm just here to facilitate, to make it easier for a bunch of guys who are super busy with other projects, who, for their perspective, which we haven't really touched on, they want to compete. Like, they still want to, like, they enjoy playing competitive League of Legends beyond what you can possibly ever get in Flex Queue. And they want to go back and they want to shot call and work as a team and stuff. And like, I understand completely your point that like, if you want to do that, take it seriously, blah, blah, blah. Go try and convince a guy making $30,000 a month to do that. And give it up for nothing.
The other thing, though, is that, it just, for me, it is an indication of this like really big grand notion that franchising is going to encourage franchising is going to encourage talent development. I think this indicates that notion has been like a little overstated to me, because I do think franchising will, to an extent, encourage talent development, but I also think it will encourage, okay, we have to recoup this huge investment that we put out in like 10 million. We need to focus on like the branding and the merchandising now that we've set all that stuff up. So I do think it will encourage like
I take the opposite.
Like this.
Well, not the opposite, but I disagree, because we don't know what the farm system's going to be. If it's an unbroadcast league, you have literally zero benefit for signing anyone for name value. So if the farm system turns out to be everyone has 5 other players who compete in their own little league, and you can do whatever you want with them, and that you can't promote relegate.
Just talking about like farm system stuff only, but I'm talking about like if you want to get a fan base, right? I don't necessarily think
you're saying like if the main roster.
Yeah, main roster or anything, like promoting people up from this farm system to the main team, things like this. Like, where is your incentive to do that if you're really, really focusing on, like, kind of, because to me, this brings about, like, more of a focus on the merchandising and the marketing aspect of the league rather than necessarily the competitive aspect of the league. There will definitely be that still, because people care about competition and stuff like that. I'm not saying that, but I do think that, like... And I definitely do think there still will be talent development, but people are like saying, of course, we're going to care a lot more about raising players and stuff, but I still feel like there will be this overarching pressure that isn't necessarily a bad thing that we need to kind of address a little bit. And I think that the Challenger team decision that they made is a symptom of that to an extent.
I don't necessarily. I think there could be a potential problem with what you're saying in terms of franchise teams now still considering fan popularity being important. It's hard to say without actually knowing how that ecosystem looks, because if most of your revenue is coming in from rev sharing and things like that, and merchandising is shared, then like how much you sell might not matter as much, because like right now a lot of lower tier teams are... You're making a face, Travis.
Just because I was looking at the shot of you. If we go back to the single of Mark, and it just reminded me of that meme
homeless man.
Man rants of it.
Sorry,
I love Draco.
I was zoning out that I just looked at the screen, and then it was just... Sorry, continue your conversation.
All I was saying was like, I think while those are legitimate concerns, I don't think the Delta Fox Challenger Dream Team, meme team, whatever, is a symptom of that. It's like, I agree that like the importance of popularity in a franchise system are things you have to think about, and that was one of the things that we didn't really cover. But I don't know why in the last time that there's ever a Challenger series, a bunch of former pro players getting together and wanting to do this is a symptom of that same problem.
I just don't think there's any value in what they are doing. So a lot of people in the Twitch chat right now are saying it's a brilliant marketing play. The business.
I don't.
And my like they're only going to stream I think one game.
They're going to have 2 over the course of the season.
Yeah.
I think that this team is going to suck. Their analyst is terrible. We know that.
I mean, they're going to probably get worse from him.
yeah. But the team. So like, what does success look like for this project?
Well, like, whose perspective are you taking?
How, I guess so. You sign these players, like,
the team.
Yeah.
Like,
so technically, if you're arguing that it's a really strong marketing strategy, which I'm not even necessarily arguing against, to be honest.
I don't think it is.
But in terms of marketing, like. So you're going to bring on these players under the Echo Fox umbrella, but it's not like they're going to be streaming under Echo Fox, or they can't stream the Challenger games themselves.
Right.
Like, if anything, it's going to increase Challenger viewership for 2 series.
Until we make a great playoffs run.
Yeah.
And then you'll have the 200,000 viewer Challenger Series finals with us.
If you guys make a great playoffs run, it is terrible news for North America.
Yeah,
like, that's just disaster.
The worst.
I mean,
like that's what everyone loses.
If anything, that
this team wins,
proves the point that we were making in the previous episode, which is like a lot of NA's best talent got paid more to be entertainers. Which, I mean, that's a different topic entirely.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like the sad thing is we're gonna get roasted for this topic, and like because everybody's just like Cutie Pie, Scar. I love all these guys, right? But I mean,
we're looking at it from the business development side of the North American region, whereas like I don't know how large of a factor that played in the most important people's decisions in putting this team together, aka the players, because they didn't put this together. Like, how can we make an excellent, financial decision for Delta Fox and Echo Fox here? They're like, hey, do you guys ever want to like play competitive league? Like, yeah, I got a little bit of an itch. Like, what if we just like found a challenger team and played together?
Yeah,
like, we want to win. Like, we're gonna take it as seriously.
I'm not upset with Scara and Cutie or any of those guys.
I'm not mad at the I'm
upset with everything else.
I'm not saying that you guys should be mad.
I'm never upset with players.
Yeah.
Not,
which is sad because sometimes I should be, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, who was like, you need to think about like who's making the critical decisions here. Well,
it's not like they just walked in and dropped their names in a box and then get to go with it. Like,
yeah, but
there are people to blame for this disaster.
Sure, if you think it's a disaster.
Yeah.
You had but either way, like, you don't get these guys to do it. So yeah, you can blame me because I was a critical factor. I was like, hey, Cutie, listen to this idea. I never.
Mark's like, he's like, I've given up. This is just me. We're leading into the entertainment reality TV side.
No, it's just if that group of people who have like I forget the number, like 8 million. Impressions a day get together and like, hey, we're potentially willing to put our names under your banner. Like, do you not consider?
I mean,
that
but they're not. If I go to Cutie Pie's Twitter account, there's no Echo Fox.
How are they actually marketing this?
I don't know, but they came up. I mean, you can ask this to Echo Fox.
Yeah. Aside from like maybe making jerseys.
All right, we got to go to break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Kelsey about some other regions.
Excellent toss.
That's it. I quit.
I'm so sorry. There's no way you get that.
I played pretty much every game with my brother. We played a lot of N64 games together, a lot of PS2 games together. He would play with all of his friends, and I would join with them. And looking back, it's kind of weird, because if I had a younger brother 5 years younger than me, I probably wouldn't let him play any games with me and my friends.
We really play a lot of video games together. That's kind of what connected us in a way that gapped the age difference between us. You know, we had different friends, we went to different schools for almost our entire lives, but we always had that together.
Everything he did, I kind of copied, I think. And if it weren't for him, I'd probably be a completely different person today.
Okay. There shouldn't be.
Emily's just breaking into the sequence.
I mean, your last toss was so bad. She was trying to jump the gun and save the show.
So I want to say, by the way, we have an amazing series called Who's Your Demon with League of Legends stuff there. They're all about 60 seconds. They're perfect for a break if you guys ever want to go check those out. It's pretty good. Next up on the show, we have this is a passive-aggressive comment to the producer. Yeah. Our Team ROCCAT's players just bad, says Kelsey, or ask Kelsey.
So the reason for this is that if you paid any attention to EU this week, you noticed that G2 beat Team ROCCAT 3-1 or 2-1, excuse me, with their sub roster, which consists of Sendo, Lulex, Blanc, and then Sven and Mithi, who are part of the main roster, because Perks was sick, and then the two Korean players were home visiting family still. So Team ROCCAT was like the team that ended G2's amazing, flawless, like seriesless. They hadn't lost a series for over a year in Europe at the end of last split, and then they made that run to not get into the playoffs because Fnatic ended up beating Misfits. But the point is that G2 ended up losing to, or ended up beating ROCCAT, and then I played something, the clip that I played showed like a decision that Lulex made based on the fact that the lanes swung for like the Lucian versus Orianna matchup at around like level 4. Why do people keep picking Lucian into Orianna is like my question. It's like one of the worst matchups for him, one of the only bad matchups for him. But the issue is that like you go on the thread, the post-match thread, and LS, one of the LCK casters, said
now
that...
Team Tempo Storm coach.
Yes.
Yeah, true. Team Tempo Storm. So this is about NA still. Excellent. Okay.
All right, I'm back. I'm paying attention again. Well, I was
Travis
just woke up. What's going on?
Comment said, coaching staff can't do much when all of your players are worse. Stop living in a fictional world where drafts swing the tides massively and coaches somehow make players mechanically, magically better. And then he says that the example he uses is Blanc knows the game well. Doesn't matter if he's thrown into a team where that they still have primarily the main players. As long as he can listen and play optimally, he's still mechanically superior. People drastically underestimate what being mechanically superior lets you get away with. It is infinitely more impressive to be mechanically inferior and yet pull out wins. That's why an LCK team like MVP is so impressive. So the question is, do Team ROCCAT's players just really suck, you know?
Because that's what LS is alleging.
Yeah, LS is alleging that they so bad that G2 subs are mechanically superior, and that's why G2 has been like flawless in Europe, nearly flawless in Europe for so long. It's just mechanics.
So there's 2 points here, right? Like there's the argument LS is making, and then like how it applies to the actual example. With regards to the argument he's making, I feel like he overstresses the term mechanics when a lot of the times it's more like just individual skill, which I think there's
individual decision making.
Yeah, like how smart do you, is this a good time to press forward in the matchup? That's not a mechanical thing for the most part. As long as you execute it, it's a decision making thing. So I think.
And within this specific context, I'd actually give a lot more credit to Lulex than I would to Blanc in terms of how G2 played in this series.
Sure. So we can get into the specifics in a second.
Yeah, not that Blanc played poorly. I'm just saying in terms of like decision making, what he did for the team, that's what I'd look at. Like Blanc was, you know.
And Mithy, you know, the shot caller / strategic coach of G2.
Just ending my thoughts on like the individual parts. So maybe I disagree with LS a little bit in terms of like how important the mechanical side is, as much as like do you play the matchup properly? Because as much as we watched Huni have 0 mechanics and win the top lane fight with like the Kennen Lucian thing, and it's more about like did he play the matchup? He got a lead, got some item advantage, and then could just win. I agree with his point that like if players are just individually better, you do buy yourself so many allowances just because like draft can kind of go out the window. They don't punish, like you play the matchups just better. So even though you got like a soft counter pick because there's not that many hard ones in league, it works out okay. And then you're shot calling from ahead super easy if you're all just like getting leads kind of. And I agree with the idea for the most part that like if you just get a lot of the best players in their region and assume they can kind of communicate basic and they're all smart about the game to the point that they're individually really good, you'll often end up with a top team. And I think like just to tie it to NA a little bit, C9's a great example of that.
I think there are a couple factors to consider in that. And I think that if you have confidence in your roster and like you have confidence in the style and you're aware of what you need to do in the game and things like this, it makes players like practice more and look mechanically better and things like this. So that's why you get these memes and these ideas that like the best team in the league has the best player in every position and things like this, because like a lot of times that kind of environment facilitates you bettering yourself individually if like the team stuff is compartmentalized and you understand what you're doing there. I think that Team ROCCAT lost a lot in terms of losing Mexlor, and there were just a lot of windows where Pride Stalker could have made an impact in the Team ROCCAT game, like the Lucian Orianna matchup. The reason people are okay with picking Lucian is because there is like a window level 2 to level 4 where you can make a gank and you can turn the matchup, and Lucian still snowballs and has like a ridiculous amount of map pressure, whatever. But Pride Stalker didn't take advantage of any of these types of windows and things like this, and then Lulex ended up identifying like when both the Galio and the Orianna matchup turn and invading the jungle and like destroyed Elise, even though Elise should do better in that particular matchup. like Kha'Zix versus Elise, things like this. So I think that there are like individual decisions throughout the game that you can point to. It's like, yeah, G2 made the better decision. I wouldn't say that anything was really mechanical outplay based exactly. That was my big issue with LS's points, is that I didn't see anything there. And also game 1 actually was a really convincing win for ROCCAT, because they had like a really strong draft with like Galio, and then they had the Zaya and Rakan bot lane and things like this, and that ended up working really well for them. So for me, it's just like, I really don't agree with the line that it's all about individual mechanics, and I do think that understanding the game to an extent will get you really, really far, and also like help you improve your mechanics, because at a certain level, like the mechanics themselves aren't doing everything.
Right.
So
I thought it was interesting that I guess Blanc was pulled as like the example out of this, just because I guess because he was like, quote unquote, the most impressive substitute. But looking at this series, I think what did actually allow part of it was the jungle matchup. And maybe it's just because I look at jungle matchups a lot, but you already made the point about Lulex versus Pridestalker, and this is Pridestalker's first week. So, you know, it hopefully will improve from there. But he's like a rookie jungler aside from playing in Challenger Series.
he actually beat Lulex in the
he did. The old grudge matchup. But the other thing that I did want to bring up in terms of like raw mechanics is that Blanc was actually picked up because he was first on the solo queue ladder when he joined Jin, and he then left Jin for PSG, who following that failed to qualify for the challengers or the LCS. So I think that, I guess it's weird that Blanc is an example of this, because he's already, I guess, been on a team where quote unquote like raw mechanics couldn't carry them out of the Challenger Series, if that makes sense. And also that, I mean, I guess I don't know the circumstances of Blanc leaving Jin, but they did end up sticking with Kuzan after a little bit. So whether it was just that Kuzan communicated better with the team or whatever, you know, he didn't stay as their starting mid laner for that long. Now you can say Jin is a terrible team within the context of Korea, and you know they are not the best team, but I think it was interesting that Blanc of all people was kind of the example that came out of that.
And I think he did play rather well, especially from a KDA perspective. I also think LS highlighted Blanc because LS's big thing is the Korean ladder, and Blanc was high on the Korean ladder. So, of course, like this is an easy point for him to connect to.
When Jin decided to start him,
he's not necessarily super familiar with the EU scene. Like, if LS wants to make a point, he will be drawn to like the Korean players he's more familiar with. So I think that's probably why that's the example he used. But, yeah.
Next up, how real is the Uzi curse? We have to go pretty quickly on this one because we need to answer at least a couple questions before the end of the show. But how real is the Uzi curse? Kelsey, you want to explain what this means?
So probably no one who watches the show watched Demacia Cup unless you're here for this segment. But
I watched a little bit just because it was the first games on 7-10.
I saw people tweeting about it.
It was only on 7-9 actually.
What?
But yeah.
Yeah. It was
only on
what am I thinking of that was on
7-9 UCSQ?
Maybe that's what I watched.
European
something that I
Challenger
shouldn't be watching.
qualifiers.
I watched something muted. I clicked the link because they said 7-10. I thought it was a Demacia Cup.
Uzi curse. Explain this.
Okay, so the UZI curse is based on the fact that Royal haven't won any tournaments or anything with UZI since he rejoined the team, but including the LPL, whereas they won the 2016 LPL with Wushin, and then they put Wushin back on the roster, and suddenly they are winning the Demacia Cup, which I think it's just like, so this has caused Chinese fans to start debating whether or not UZI should be benched from the roster and they should just play with Wushin. I think this is a little bit ridiculous to bring it up over this tournament personally, because this was a tournament where all of the top 4 teams played with a sub, including OMG, WE, and EDG. They all played with subs, and you can argue whether or not Clearlive is a sub, but I'm calling him a sub. They all played with subs, and he was atrocious, by the way. They all played with subs, and then RNG was the only one that actually won their quarterfinal match with their sub. And then they had a really terrible series against LGD, which should indicate something. And then they won 3-1 against IME to win the tournament. So it wasn't like they were beating longtime rivals WE or EDG in the final. They were beating IME, who is even optimistically the 4th or 5th best team in the league. So to me, I think it's a little bit silly to bring this topic up now. And I think what people are more concerned about is if you watch the LPL final, UCI played actually pretty poorly. There's some indication based on the fact that throughout the course of last split, MLXG was subbed out when UCI played a lot, and UCI was subbed out when MLXG played a lot. So there's some indication that there are people on the team that maybe don't get along. So the question is like, if that's the case, do you go with MLXG or UCI as well?
Well, just touching on the idea that some teams play better without certain members in the roster, depending on how well they'll get along. That's like a super, like, factually true thing. Like, even if someone's individually better player, if you don't work well together, you're gonna lose. And especially, it actually ends up happening a lot between AD carries and junglers. Because it feels like AD carries as a role just want the world, and junglers often want freedom. So those two kind of go against each other. And
the totalitarian versus democratic.
Yes, very.
MLXG kind of does what he wants regardless.
Yeah, so that might tilt someone like Uzi who wants pressure at certain points. Having worked on a team with a player like that who had a lot of arguments with his jungler, who wanted him to come down a lot more than the other guy wanted to.
Is that the new Echo Fox team that you're referring to?
Yeah, QtPie is a nightmare. And then, you see stories about Forgiven. And I know we interviewed Forgiven, and him and Dom had different ideas about how the game should be played before they even got into game together. Yeah. So there's a lot of examples where, like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
The thing about Forgiven is you just tell him, it's so much more impressive if you win. Right?
Without jungle help, because then you can just
call the jungle. And he's like, you're right.
It's like the Donald Trump thing where like Obama would have never done it. It's like Double Lift and these other carries, they would never. They need their junglers. You don't even need your jungler.
Yeah.
And then he's like, Yankos, why are you even here? Go talk.
What a team player.
I know, right? It's the new Forgiven.
But
thinking back to, so the only thing, obviously, I don't think that should be a key takeaway from this tournament specifically. I think if you look at it from a historic context, maybe that's where people are coming from more, just because you mentioned the stuff this past year, but then you have RNG at times last year, like even though they were still coming together and they still made a lot of mistakes, they looked a little bit more cohesive when they played Whoosh over Uzi when you compared them over splits. So I think there was something about that didn't initially work, and obviously Mada's no longer there, so we don't know if that was solely a Mada thing, but I think that's some other relevant context that maybe people haven't forgotten yet, although at the time people were just like, are you crazy? There's no way that Whoosh should play over Uzi, so maybe that perspective is finally starting to shift a bit, but I'm not really sure.
I think the weird thing about RNG, to add a little bit of context also, is that they subbed out players a lot, but they always still played the same way. So this is a good example as well, is that if your team system and understanding of the game is really strong, you can still win with frequent substitutions and stuff, because RNG, weirdly enough, even when UZI played and MLXG wasn't around, were a really solo lane focused team this split, actually. Mm-hmm. It was mostly about Let Me and Xiaohu and setting up this 1-3-1 where UZI held mid and things like this. So I think it was, So to me, I actually felt like for most of the split, UZI was a really, really strong player still. And if it is an ego thing, I really just wish they would get over it, because it's a huge problem with Chinese teams. Like, so many Chinese teams have just been eaten alive by ego. Like, I swear, more than Western teams, partly because management and coaches are just, like, kind of accessories in Chinese teams a lot of times. So it's really player-driven, and so, like, egos and childishness end up mattering so much more. This is a huge problem for the region, so I just wish they would just get over it. And if you have to choose between UZI and MLXG, honestly, I would find another jungler, because
MLXG.
I have huge issues with the way MLXG plays. So, yeah.
All right. Questions from chat. I know we've already been starting to get some from Twitch chat, but if you are in the chat and you want to ask a question, please do so now. Starting off with Zoom Enhanced question: in LPL, who do you think a comeback player will be? So someone who wasn't doing well, or was good, then wasn't doing well, and hopefully will come back to doing well.
Over the course of this year, or just in general, I mean, I think the obvious answer is going to be Cool, because I'm not really confident in LGD, but I think that Cool has been demonstrating over the course of the past split, and then Demacia Cup and things like that, that this guy, like, really wants to succeed. And part of LGD's issue was just that they had the same core 3 players for so long, and it was clear that no one was just happy. So I think LGD might do a little bit better. I still don't think they'll be a top team, but I think that Cool will really shine in this type of environment, because I think you can slot him in for Wayless, and he'll be more consistent, and he'll have, like, much more consistent pressure and things like this. So Cool is probably the obvious answer.
Next up, we have a question from our good friend Shadow Chess. Always asks interesting questions. Thoughts on Envy's strategy of split pushing with Seraph to win? Can it be viable enough to get to playoffs?
I mean, if Lyra plays.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I think so. I don't personally like Seraph too much as a player, but the problem always came not from, like, his split pushes, but, like, the team as a whole couldn't play around that stuff properly. And what was really surprising to me, because he played Jace with Blade the Rune King thing twice, but the second time when they won with it, what was impressive was he got ganked early on and lost his turret first. But then Envy recovered, Empyrean and Lyra go top, and they regank the Shen and kill him and take his turret. And then he has enough of a lead that he eventually starts doing the split push thing. So that's why I think, like, maybe against lower tier teams, because you really only need to beat 4 teams or be better than 4 teams to make it into playoffs, I could see a world where, like, this strategy works, because I think Pyrian is a better control mage player, and you don't need to run 1-3-1s the way you kind of had to with Ninja previously. Because I'm pretty on record as not being a big Ninja fan. So with that, I think, like, Lyra's, as long as Envy keeps getting leads and Apollo and Hako are pretty consistent, and Pyrian's an upgrade, I could see that style working for them.
Well, very good. Next question is from Exbeya. Is how I'm going to pronounce that. It's very hard to read. With franchising happening, should Riot think about rolling back import restrictions?
So this is the...
Yeah, this is, I guess we kind of touched upon this when we were talking.
Well, we referenced that there was some conversation.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about it, though.
I wrote a really long article where I said no.
Can you read the whole article right now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I was just going to kind of say a quick no and then direct Kelsey to that article.
I'll throw my no in there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to read it. You can summarize.
What was the name of the article, Kelsey, for those that want to read it?
Here, I'll link it.
Let's get all 3 of you to look
everybody start linking. Mark, start talking.
All right, so I vote no, because my problem with it is, like, just because you no longer have region locking, a lot of people point to the LMQ, or not region locking, it's when you have franchising, you won't have that LMQ situation pop up, or the attempted Quantic situation where a bunch of teams from another region come over and they work their way through the challenger system, force themselves in the LCS, and now there's just a Korean or Chinese team in your league. With that gone, people are like, well, now you'll have NA orgs running 5-man Korean rosters or something. And that's really not much better from a fan perspective, I feel like, where you still can't really get to know them. And there was a bunch of back and forth between Jack and some other owners and
Esports Salon.
Yeah, Esports Salon with Monty and Thorin. They all talked about that pretty well. But I do agree for the most part with the concern that, like, yeah, fans will not like resonate with a team if it's 100% Korean roster. I think you very quickly go from like, oh, it's Impact with Sneaky and Jensen and they're all joking around and you get to learn his personality through other North American players, and it's like now there's 5 Korean pros all trying to learn English, and it just like it looks so much different from a fan perspective in terms of understanding them.
I actually have the article up on the computer here as we can get that up on screen while Kelsey, you talk about it.
It's region locking and competition challenging assumptions in episode 6 of Esports Salon. So the reason why I wrote this article is because I don't even like the main framework assumption that everyone on that episode to which Marx is referring to made, which is that just removing region locking will make us more competitive internationally. Because I think that a lot of the problems with NA are just like very top down in terms of the orgs themselves are saying, okay, we're not even prioritizing being super competitive anymore. Like Noah himself says, I don't care as much. I care about creating like a long-term brand. And obviously they all care about competition. I'm not saying that. But like after you do that and after you convey that, why then will you get mad at your NA players for also not prioritizing these things? And like, does it not just translate to the Korean players who come over and say, okay, this is what my org wants me to do, so this is what I'm going to do, and things like this. So to me, like, I don't even think that it's a fair assumption to make, because then you're also relying on these Korean pros. You're completely removing like the NA player-based system, and then there is a finite, like we already talked about, the just get a Korean player from the ladder assumption. It's like part of the reason why Korean players are so successful when they go to other regions is because they've already been brought up in the Korean farm team system. So are we just going to be forever reliant on the Korean farm team system to raise our own players? And then after a while, like you can't just like keep taking Korean players and have them be infinitely refreshed, because we're already seeing like organizations that bring two Korean players have trouble with that type of like skill base and things like this. So I think that it's just, to me, it doesn't make NA long-term competitive if you remove region locking. Bringing in a bunch of Korean players doesn't make NA long-term competitive. It hardly makes it more short-run competitive. And there's no evidence to suggest that like teams with more Koreans will do better internationally. So
just to touch on that too, when we had Loco on for that episode where he guests appeared, he was talking about how important like the entire Korean system is to their competitiveness, not just that like, oh, you like the Korean players themselves. It's like, well, the coaching staff is very like strict, and you would need to bring a coaching staff over then. And like one of the reasons they can be so strict is like the culture there, and then also the fact that there's so much talent available in Korea, where like now you're in North America, Korea.
Solo queue is different.
Yeah, like are you really under the same kind of pressures and threats that you are when you're in the Korean system? And so I think you could argue, like Kelsey's saying, that it's not just like, oh, we brought a full Korean team over. Now we are a Korean team. There's a whole bunch of culture and situation that you left behind in Korea.
Yep. Final question is from Lazink, who says, should NA LCS implement a salary floor / cap? It's worth noting there already is a salary floor. Mm-hmm.
And they just upped it, right?
Yeah, I think they're going to be upping it. And I don't know exactly what's going to work with like the 30% going there, but
well, they said in the press release they're upping it to, I forget the number. I want to say like
75.
$75.
It went from 25 to 75.
Okay. Yeah. And then additionally with the revenue sharing, since some of it's going to players, if player makes below the like average, I think they up it with like the sharing. It's in there, but
below
anyway.
the 75.
Yeah.
So the more interesting part is the salary cap, which I would be so in favor for. Because I think salary cap, at least for people who are fans of North American leagues, you find that a lot of the, like, there's still like, I mean, each league has its own problem, but I do think it goes a long way towards parity in terms of like, you can't just get outbid now. There's no Yankees, there's no Red Sox, there's no Dodgers.
Yeah, but do you feel like
I feel like
teams that are doing well are getting, like, Yankees, like they maintain dominance because they were paying everybody more. Do you think TSM's paying everybody more?
Yeah, that was actually going to be my thing. I don't think that...
Not since the investment money came in.
Yes.
But for a while,
In fact, I would say that maybe the worst team in the league is paying some of their players the most.
Recently, yes.
This is actually what I was going to say. So I'm not like right now. I'm not super pro or super against having salary cap. For me, it's actually currently a non-issue because I don't feel like it affects any sort of like competitive integrity of the league. I don't feel like even these organizations that you could accuse of quote unquote buying players and offering the highest salaries, they're not the organizations who are winning. When like if that becomes a problem, I think that's when you have to start implementing a salary cap. But honestly, even with, and Kelsey will step in to correct me if I'm wrong, but like even with the gigantic contracts we saw for a bit in China when streaming companies were kind of really focusing on bringing in top level Koreans, with the exception of EDG, and I don't even think they were paying the highest salaries. Like we haven't seen a team just try to buy the league, but it never works.
And I agree for now. I think you're saying that like we can implement it when it becomes a little bit more of an issue.
if it becomes a problem with one org just having the most money and buying all the players and always winning, that's when I think it's a problem.
And so touching on that real quick, right now a lot of teams are still operating at a loss in North America. Where like they're not making money, and the player salaries are overinflated right now with the amount of revenue coming in. So that needs to stabilize, and then as soon as one team starts making significantly more money than other orgs in the league, then that's when you need to look at salary capping. And I think right now with the amount of influx of the VC money that you have, the teams who actually are earning the most are not actually paying the most right now, because the VC teams are paying out of pocket to try and be more competitive. And they're willing to like eat a loss right now. But eventually, as like, you know, the franchising stabilizes and you're actually running a league and people are more concerned about their bottom line, which right now they frankly don't care about, that's when you probably need to start considering salary capping.
Yeah, I agree. So that's the show. There is one final thing we always bring up on the show. Earlier, I saw some people in Twitch chat who were saying they were like, oh, when is this happening? I'm waiting for this. This is their favorite part. It is time for Emily Rand's anime pick of the week.
So this week, I like to. What is it? I don't even want to wink. I just want to do like the Agent Cooper thing. This week, I'm going to be recommending JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, courtesy of actually Ovly, who I was talking to earlier. It is incredibly wacky and weird, and you'll pretty much know whether you want to keep watching it after the first few episodes. But it just gets more and more insane, and it's super fun if you just want to see people beating each other up and cool fights and a lot of like stylish posing. I don't know. I find it super hilarious to watch. So, and it's available for free on Crunchyroll.
And Broken Chopsticks in the chat says best anime ever.
Thank you, Ovly.
Yeah.
Patting yourself on the back.
I know.
Like, what a great pick there, Emily.
Much like every week, I find myself asking you, like, what... You always kind of describe, like, the reaction to... But what is it? What's it about?
So it's about this... This really rich guy
named JoJo.
Well, so there's like different parts of it. It's actually really hard to explain. That's why I didn't. I tried to sell it with people beating each other up. I feel like you say this. That usually works. This guy, he's like kind of has everything, and this kid comes into his life named Dio, and Dio messes everything up. And then there's like weird things with masks and vampires, and they go to all sorts of different places. And every part of the story is like a different generation of this family.
Okay,
they're all
like
fighting
each other. It's like an adventure.
Kind of, yeah. It's like I'd consider it like a battle, like fighting.
What was that movie with Adam Sandler, Big Daddy?
Yeah,
sounds a little like that. You know, this guy's got his life together, and this kid shows up.
Was that it? Is that it?
No, it's like a kid his own age. Like he starts as a kid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a rivalry?
Yes.
Okay. I still don't really understand anything about this anime, but you know what? That's the exciting thing about Emily Rand's anime.
Sounds like Travis doesn't understand it.
There you go. So let's go ahead and do shout outs. Anything that you want to throw out there, Mark?
Not really. I'll be doing my usual blame game this week, as well as maybe doing something else because I want to explore that C9 thing I brought up a little bit more. So maybe have an extra video coming out this week. So follow my YouTube or my Twitter, which is on screen right now. YouTube's the same thing. Just / the Marksy.
We really need to figure out when we're going to do our secret non-esports show.
Probably after the split.
Really? We
I'm
have to
pretty
wait that
busy
long?
now.
Okay.
Since my extra responsibilities.
Yeah, really extra responsibilities. Emily, you have anything?
Yes, I actually have an article I'm really excited about. That is about a Brazilian player. So I know Travis automatically tunes out, but he has a really interesting story. And this is kind of this year's his competitive debut as one of the junglers for INTZ. So I'm really excited about that.
Who's the player?
Shinny.
Okay. And where can people find you?
At
Brazilian Apto.
League of Emily. Yes.
Brazilian Apto. See, that's the selling point.
The title of the thing is Brazilian Apto No More.
Okay.
So if that gives you a...
Okay. Kelsey?
So I guess for me, I'm going to start putting out like weekly European LCS reflections because I feel I just to organize my thoughts better on it. So if that's something you're interested in because we don't talk about EU enough on the show. Yeah. Otherwise, shout out to Origins.
Oh no, we're losing you just at that moment.
No.
The show's run too long. She's out of downloads.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, am I here?
Yeah, you're kind of here.
Okay.
No, we're losing you. All right. Kelsey, you can find Kelsey on Twitter. I forget, it's like
K. Aaron Moser.
Yeah, K. Aaron Moser.
Karen Moser.
Yeah. You can find her at K. Aaron Moser on Twitter. And I'm sorry.
Hey, look, it's Kelsey Moser right here. Oh, there she is.
Hi. I was just going to say you should actually tune in for Origins EUCS games whenever they start. No one's clear on that. Because even though their ad and the roster announcement was super cringe, I'm actually excited for this team, and their storyline was really awesome. So
very good.
Teamwork.
Yeah, that's
motivation.
Woo!
Well,
hexagons.
You can find me on Twitter at Travis Gafford. My Twitter stopped growing, so if anybody watching this wants to follow me, that would
Is it shrinking?
Make me feel good. No, it's plateaued.
Oh, all right. Well, at least you're not losing relevancy.
Also, shout out to everybody in the control room. I give them a lot of crap on the show, but you know, it's pretty good. We'll be back next Monday, E3 week, to preview all the exciting League of Legends E3 action. It's going to be all over the place.
Is there any?
We
can't wait.
Is that E3?
Thanks for watching.